The shotgun blast echoed through the garage as Ethan Cole stood between certain death and the woman he'd just met. "Get to the fire escape now!" he roared, blood streaming down his face. Isabella Grant, CEO of a Fortune 500 company, clutched her daughter Sophie as armed men surrounded the building. How did a widowed mechanic from Iowa end up in a deadly standoff with one of America's most powerful men? Stay with me until the end of this incredible story and comment your city below. Let's see how far this tale travels. The rain hammered against the corrugated metal roof of Cole's auto repair like bullets from heaven, each drop a percussion in nature's violent symphony. Ethan Cole wiped the grease from his hands with a rag that had seen better days, the fluorescent lights of his garage casting harsh shadows across his weathered face. At 38, he had the kind of hands that told stories, scarred knuckles from years of work, a wedding ring, tan line that hadn't faded even 3 years after Sarah's death. "Come on, you stubborn piece of," he muttered, wrestling with a particularly obstinate transmission bolt on the Patterson's old Ford. The clock on the wall read 9:47 p.m., but time meant little to a man who preferred the company of broken machines to the emptiness of his apartment upstairs. Thunder crashed overhead so loud it seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. Ethan paused, wrench in hand, listening to the storm's fury. Iowa summers could be brutal, but this was something else entirely. The Weather Service had been warning about it all week, calling it the storm of the decade. Most folks had the sense to hunker down at home. But home for Ethan was just 4 walls and photographs he couldn't bear to look at anymore. He was about to return to his work when he heard a sound that didn't belong to the storm. Footsteps. Running. Splashing through the puddles in the alley beside his shop. The side door burst open with such force it slammed against the wall, and there she stood, a woman in a designer suit that was now soaked through her dark hair, plastered to her face, clutching the hand of a young girl who couldn't have been more than 7. Both were breathing hard, eyes wide with something that went beyond the fear of weather. "Please." The woman gasped, her voice cultured but desperate. "Please, we need help." Ethan set down his wrench slowly, his instincts honed by 3 tours in Afghanistan, before Sarah convinced him to leave the service immediately on alert. This wasn't about the storm. The way the woman kept glancing back at the door, the way she positioned herself between the entrance and the child, the barely controlled panic in her movements, someone was after them. "Ma'am, you okay?" he asked, already knowing the answer, already reaching for the shop towels on the workbench. "You both hurt. We just need—" She started, then stopped as headlights swept across the rain-slicked windows. Her whole body tensed, and she pulled the girl behind a tool cabinet. "Please, if anyone asks, you haven't seen us." The little girl, Sophie, he'd heard the woman call her, was shaking, not from cold, but from fear. She had her mother's dark hair and delicate features, but her eyes held a terror no child should know. "Hey there, sweetheart," Ethan said gently, crouching down to Sophie's level while keeping his peripheral vision on the door. "You like hot chocolate? I've got some upstairs. Swiss Miss with the little marshmallows." Sophie nodded mutely, pressing closer to her mother. "Isabella," the woman said suddenly, as if remembering social niceties even in crisis. "Isabella Grant, this is Sophie. I'm sorry we shouldn't have. We'll go." "You'll do no such thing," Ethan said firmly. Another set of headlights passed slower this time, searching. "Not in this weather, and not with whoever's got you running like this. Come on." He led them to the back stairs, noting how Isabella moved controlled, athletic, despite her obvious exhaustion. This was a woman used to being in charge, forced into a situation where control had been ripped away. The apartment above the garage was small but clean, a bachelor's space that still held touches of a woman's hand. Curtains Sarah had sewn a quilt her mother had made pictures, turned face down on the mantel. Ethan grabbed towels from the bathroom, handed them over without ceremony. "Thank you," Isabella said, wrapping one around Sophie before tending to herself. "I know how this must look." "Looks like you're in trouble," Ethan interrupted, moving to the window to peer through the blinds. The street below was empty, except for rain and shadows, but his gut told him that wouldn't last. "Ex-husband," Isabella's laugh was bitter. "How did you know? The way you're protecting her, the fear in her eyes when those headlights hit. I've seen it before." He turned from the window, studied them both. "How bad is he?" "You have no idea," Isabella whispered, and for the first time her composure cracked. "Dominic Grant. Maybe you've heard of him. Grant Industries, Grant Technologies, Grant everything. He owns half of Chicago and thinks he owns us too." Ethan had heard the name. Who hadn't? Dominic Grant was the kind of billionaire who made headlines, the kind who had senators on speed dial and judges in his pocket. The kind of man who didn't lose. "Custody dispute." "There is no dispute. The court gave me full custody, but Dominic doesn't recognize any authority but his own." Isabella pulled Sophie closer. "He's been escalating. First it was lawyers, then private investigators, then worse. Tonight his men tried to take Sophie from her dance recital. We ran. I didn't know where else to go. My car broke down a few blocks away, and we saw your lights." "Mom," Sophie whispered, "are we safe here?" Isabella looked at Ethan, a question in her eyes. He wasn't sure he could answer. "You're safe," he said anyway, because what else could he say to a terrified child? "I promise." The words had barely left his mouth when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Mr. Cole." The voice was smooth, professional, cold. "My name is Marcus. I work for Mr. Grant. We're looking for something that belongs to him. Perhaps you've seen a woman and a child in the area. There's a substantial reward for any information." Ethan's jaw tightened. They'd tracked them here already. These weren't amateurs. "Haven't seen anyone," he said evenly. "Shop's been closed since 6. I'm just doing paperwork." "I see. Well, if you do happen to see anything, the offer stands. Have a good evening, Mr. Cole." The line went dead. Ethan looked at Isabella, saw she understood. "They know we're here," she breathed. "They suspect. That's different." He moved with purpose now, checking window locks, pulling blinds. "How many? I don't know. Dominic has a whole security team. Ex-military, ex-CIA, the best money can buy." "Yeah, well, money can't buy everything." Ethan went to his bedroom, came back with a locked case. Isabella's eyes widened as he opened it. A Remington 870 shotgun, a Sig Sauer P226 boxes of ammunition. "I did 3 tours in Afghanistan, Helmand Province mostly. Your ex isn't the only one with training. I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. I'm offering." He loaded the shotgun with practiced efficiency. "Besides, what kind of man would I be if I handed a woman and child over to someone they're running from?" Isabella's phone buzzed. She looked at it, her face paling. "He's texting me. He knows where we are. He says if I come out now with Sophie, no one has to get hurt. No one except you and Sophie. You don't understand. Dominic doesn't make idle threats. He'll burn this whole place down to get to us. Then he'll have to go through me first. You don't even know us." Ethan paused in his preparations, looked at her directly. "My wife died 3 years ago. Cancer. Took her in 6 months, start to finish. Before she went, she made me promise something. Said I'd been a warrior long enough that I needed to remember how to be a protector instead. Someone who stands between the darkness and the innocent. He checked the SIG's magazine. Haven't had much call to keep that promise until tonight. Sophie had been silent through this exchange, but now she tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Mister, are you a soldier? I was, sweetheart. My dad says soldiers are just hired thugs, that they're all stupid and violent. Sophie, Isabella admonished, but Ethan held up a hand. Your dad's entitled to his opinion. But you know what I think. I think a real soldier is someone who stands up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Someone who puts themselves between danger and innocence. What do you think? Sophie considered this seriously. I think you're not like my dad's men. No, Ethan agreed. I'm not. The lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out entirely. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. They cut the power, Isabella whispered. Main breakers in the garage. They're coming. Ethan handed her the SIG. You know how to use this. Dominic made sure I learned. Said a Grant needed to know how to protect themselves. Her laugh was hollow. Never thought I'd need it against him. Take Sophie to the bathroom. It's the most defensible room, one entrance, no windows. Lock the door and don't open it for anyone but me. How will I know it's you? Ethan thought for a moment. I'll knock 3 times, pause, then twice more. Anything else you shoot through the door. Center mass. Don't hesitate. Ethan, she started, then stopped. Why are you doing this? Because it's right, he said simply. Now go. She grabbed Sophie and moved to the bathroom. At the doorway, she turned back. Ethan, thank you. Thank me when we get through this. The bathroom door closed, the lock clicking into place. Ethan positioned himself behind the kitchen counter, giving him a clear view of both the apartment entrance and the stairs. The Remington was a comfort in his hands, its weight familiar even after years of civilian life. The first sign was the absence of sound. The storm still raged, but suddenly he couldn't hear the rain on the windows. They'd put men on the roof, probably rappelling down to cover the windows. Professional. Methodical. The doorknob turned slowly, testing. Then nothing. They were assessing planning. The door exploded inward, kicked with enough force to splinter the frame. 3 men entered in tactical formation, weapons raised. Ethan didn't hesitate. The Remington roared, taking the point man's center mass. The man flew backward, his body armor absorbing most of the blast, but the kinetic force dropping him. Ethan racked another shell, fired at the second man, who was already diving for cover. The shot went wide, shattering the window behind him. The third man opened fire, automatic weapon chattering, forcing Ethan down as bullets chewed through the cabinet above his head. Cole, a voice called out. Marcus from the phone. This doesn't have to end badly. We just want what belongs to Mr. Grant. They don't belong to anyone, Ethan shouted back, using the distraction to move position, crawling behind the couch. The law says otherwise. The law gave Isabella custody. Mr. Grant has different paperwork. Amazing what money can buy, isn't it? More men were entering now. Ethan counted at least 5, maybe 6. Too many. He needed to even the odds. The kitchen had a gas stove. Ethan smiled grimly, an idea forming. He fired the Remington twice more, keeping them pinned, then rolled into the kitchen. Bullets followed him, shattering dishes, puncturing the refrigerator. He reached up, turned all the gas burners on full without lighting them, then grabbed the fire extinguisher from under the sink. Getting desperate in there, Cole, Marcus taunted. Just send them out. You can walk away from this. Counteroffer, Ethan called back, pulling the pin on the fire extinguisher. You leave now, and I don't have to explain to your boss why his entire security team got taken out by one mechanic. Laughter. You're outnumbered 8-1. I've had worse odds. Ethan sprayed the fire extinguisher, filling the apartment with dense white fog. In the confusion, he moved again, this time to his bedroom. He had 30 seconds, maybe less, before they realized what he was doing with the gas. His bedroom closet had a panel in the back. Sarah had never known about it. Behind it, his old service rifle, an M4 carbine he'd kept through channels better left unmentioned. Muscle memory took over as he loaded it, checked the sight, flicked off the safety. The fog was clearing. He could see shapes moving, heading for the bathroom. They'd figured out where Isabella and Sophie were. No! Ethan roared, stepping out and opening fire. The M4 barked in controlled bursts. One man down, two, a third diving for cover. But there were more, always more, and now they were returning fire in earnest. A bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Another grazed his ribs. Ethan dropped behind the bed, breathing hard blood already soaking his shirt. The gas smell was getting stronger. Soon, someone would notice, Mr. Cole, a new voice, authoritative, commanding. This is Dominic Grant. Ethan looked toward the door. The man himself stood there, tall and immaculate. Despite the chaos, like violence couldn't touch him. I respect what you're trying to do. Dominic continued, stepping over the bodies of his own men without a glance. Truly. But this ends now. Isabella, I know you can hear me. Come out with Sophie, or I'll have Mr. Cole shot piece by piece until you do. Don't listen to him, Ethan shouted, then gasped as a boot connected with his wounded ribs. Bring him, Dominic ordered. Two men hauled Ethan to his feet, dragged him into the living room. Dominic stood by the bathroom door, examining it like a problem to be solved. Isabella, he called out almost gently. Our daughter is frightened. Can you hear her crying? This is all so unnecessary. I'm her father. I have rights. You have nothing. Isabella's voice came through the door, fierce and protective. The court was wrong. They've seen that now. I have new papers signed by a judge just this evening. Emergency custody transfer given your erratic behavior. Kidnapping Sophie, hiding in dangerous places, associating with violent individuals. He glanced at Ethan, bleeding on the floor. It doesn't look good, Isabella. You're lying. Am I? Would you like to see the papers, Marcus? Marcus stepped forward with a folder. Even from the floor, Ethan could see the official seals, the signatures. All of it fake, no doubt, or bought. But who would challenge it? Who would stand against Dominic Grant's money and power? Last chance, Isabella. Open the door, or I have Mr. Cole executed for interfering with a lawful custody transfer. The silence stretched. Ethan could hear Sophie crying quietly. Isabella trying to comfort her. He thought about Sarah, about promises made and kept, about standing between the darkness and the innocent. Hey, Grant, he said, spitting blood. You smell that? Dominic frowned, then his eyes widened as he recognized the gas odor. You wouldn't. Got a lighter in my pocket. Ethan grinned through bloody teeth. What do you think happens when I use it? You'll kill yourself. Probably. But I'll take you with me. Your men, too. Isabella and Sophie are in the bathroom, best chance of survival with that solid door. They'll make it. You won't. You're bluffing. Ethan pulled out the lighter, flicked it open. Every gun in the room swung toward him. Shoot me and the lighter drops, he said calmly. We all go up, or you can leave right now and never come back. Dominic studied him, calculating. You'd die for strangers. I'd die for what's right. Question is, would you die for what's wrong? The two men stared at each other. The billionaire and the mechanic, power and principle, everything that was wrong with the world, and one man trying to make it right. "This isn't over," Dominic said finally. "Isabella, you hear me, this will never be over." He turned and walked out, his men following, carrying their wounded. Marcus lingered at the door. "You should have taken the money, Cole. Would have had to live with myself after. Now you might not live at all." After they left, Ethan crawled to the stove, turned off the gas, then managed to knock 3 times on the bathroom door, pause, knock twice more. "They're gone," he gasped. The door flew open. Isabella took one look at him and dropped to her knees, pressing her hands against his wounds. "Oh God, Ethan, you're shot. Sophie, bring towels now." "I'm okay," he lied, the world starting to gray at the edges. "You need to run. He'll be back. We're not leaving you. You have to. Sophie needs to see that good people don't abandon each other," Isabella said firmly. "We're getting you to a hospital." "No hospitals. They'll be watching. I know a guy, former Navy corpsman, runs a clinic off the books for people who can't go to regular hospitals. He owes me a favor." Together they got him on his feet. Sophie, brave little Sophie, held the door as Isabella helped him down the stairs. His truck was in the garage, nothing fancy, but it would run. "I'll drive," Isabella said. "You don't know where—" "You'll direct me. Get in." They pulled out into the storm, leaving the shop behind. In the rearview mirror, Ethan saw flames beginning to lick at the windows. They'd torched it. His home, his business, his life gone. "I'm sorry," Isabella whispered. "Don't be. It was just things. You and Sophie are people. That's what matters." How could you?" "My wife," Ethan said, fighting to stay conscious as Isabella drove through the storm. "Sarah, she was a teacher, elementary school. She used to say that every child deserved someone who would stand between them and the monsters. Even when she was dying, especially when she was dying, she kept saying that. Made me promise to remember it. She sounds amazing. She was. She would have liked you, would have loved Sophie." Sophie leaned forward from the back seat. "Mr. Ethan, are you going to die?" "No, sweetheart. I'm too stubborn to die. Ask anyone. My dad says you're a dead man. He says nobody crosses him and lives." "Well, we'll just have to prove him wrong, won't we?" Isabella reached over, squeezed his hand. "We're going to get through this. Together. Together." The clinic was in an industrial area, unmarked and unremarkable. Doc Ramirez asked no questions, just got to work. The bullet in the shoulder had to come out. The ribs were bruised, but not broken. 14 stitches in total. Antibiotics. Pain meds. "He needs rest," Doc told Isabella. "Lots of it. And you need to disappear. All of you. Grant's people have been making noise all over the city." "We will," Isabella promised. They found a motel on the outskirts of town, the kind that took cash and didn't ask for ID. 1 room, 2 beds. Sophie curled up with her mother, while Ethan took the other bed, his breathing labored but steady. "Ethan," Isabella whispered in the darkness. "Yeah. What you did tonight. No one's ever done anything like that for us. Not even Dominic was charming once. Swept me off my feet. But when I saw who he really was, when I tried to leave the first time, no one would help. Too afraid of him. You got out. That took courage. I had to, for Sophie. The things he was starting to say to her about her. The way he looked at her sometimes like she was property and asset. I won't let him turn her into what he is. He won't. I promise you that. You can't promise that. You don't know what he's capable of. I know what I'm capable of too." There was a long silence. Then Isabella spoke again so quietly he almost missed it. "I think Sarah would be proud of you tonight." Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his wedding ring on its chain around his neck. He'd stopped wearing it on his hand a year ago, but couldn't bear to put it away entirely. "I hope so," he said. Morning came gray and wet, the storm having passed, but leaving its mark. Ethan woke to find Isabella on the phone, her voice tense. Sophie was watching cartoons, the volume low. "What is it?" he asked. Isabella ended the call, turned to him with tears in her eyes. "That was my lawyer. The papers Dominic showed us, they're real. He got an emergency injunction. A judge, one he owns, declared me an unfit mother based on last night. Kidnapping, child endangerment, associating with criminals, that's you, by the way. They've painted you as some kind of violent felon. We'll fight it. With what he has, unlimited resources. The best lawyers, judges in his pocket. And now we're fugitives. If we surface anywhere, he'll take Sophie, and I'll probably go to jail." "Then we don't surface." "What do you mean?" Ethan sat up, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. "I mean we disappear. All of us. Start over somewhere else, somewhere he can't reach." "That's crazy. I have a company to run a life. A life where you're always looking over your shoulder, where Sophie's always in danger. That's not a life, Isabella. And what about you? This isn't your fight. It is now. Why? Why would you give up everything for people you just met?" Ethan looked at Sophie, who had abandoned the TV and was listening intently. He thought about how to explain it about Sarah and promises and the difference between surviving and living. "Because sometimes," he said finally, "the family you choose is more important than the life you've built. And because Sophie deserves to grow up without fear. Every child does. You barely know us. I know enough. I know you're brave enough to run from a monster to protect your daughter. I know Sophie's got your strength and your smarts. And I know that last night when I was bleeding on the floor, you could have run, but you didn't. That tells me everything I need to know." Isabella was crying now, silently, trying not to let Sophie see. "Where would we go?" "I've got an old army buddy in Montana. Runs a ranch middle of nowhere. He'd let us stay while we figure things out. New names, new lives. It's not witness protection, but it's close." "Ethan, my son's there," he said quietly. "Michael. He's been living with my sister since Sarah died. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to be a single dad. Too much grief, too much anger. But maybe it's time." "You have a son. 11 years old. Smart as his mother, stubborn as me. He'd like Sophie, I think." Sophie had crept closer, was now standing by Ethan's bed. "You have a boy. I do, sweetheart. Does he like dogs?" "Loves them. Why? I always wanted a dog, but Dad said they were dirty and useless." "Well, your dad's wrong about a lot of things." Isabella made a decision. Ethan could see it in her eyes the moment she chose to trust, to leap. "Okay," she said. "Montana. But Ethan, I need you to understand something. Dominic will never stop looking. He doesn't know how to lose. This isn't just about custody for him, it's about winning, about possession. He'll hunt us forever. Then we'll stay hidden forever, or at least until Sophie's 18 and can make her own choices. That's 11 years. I've got nowhere else to be." Their eyes met and held something passing between them, not quite love, not yet, but the possibility of it, the promise of it. "We'll need supplies," Isabella said, becoming practical. "Money. I can access some accounts he doesn't know about, but we'll have to be careful." I've got some cash saved, and we'll need a different vehicle. The truck's too recognizable now. I can handle that. I didn't become CEO of a Fortune 500 company without learning how to get things done. For the first time since they'd met, Ethan saw a glimpse of who Isabella really was, not the terrified mother, but the formidable woman who'd built an empire of her own before Dominic had torn it all down. "All right then," he said. "We leave tonight, after dark. Together, together." Sophie climbed onto the bed, careful of his injuries, and hugged him. It was unexpected, her small arms around his neck, her trust absolute. "Thank you for being our soldier," she whispered. Ethan held her gently, feeling something crack open in his chest, the wall he'd built around his heart after Sarah died. "Thank you for letting me," he whispered back. Outside, the sun was trying to break through the clouds. It wasn't much, just a sliver of light in the gray, but it was enough. It was a beginning. Isabella started making calls using burner phones, moving money, arranging transportation. Ethan watched her work, impressed by her efficiency and intelligence. This was a woman who'd survived Dominic Grant for years, who'd built her own success despite him. She was stronger than she knew. "I've got us a van," she announced. "Clean papers registered to a shell company. It'll be here in 2 hours. And after Montana? What then? We figure it out as we go, maybe Canada eventually. I have contacts there, people who never liked Dominic. A new life. A free life," she corrected. "That's all that matters." The hours passed slowly. Sophie dozed, exhausted from the trauma of the night before. Isabella and Ethan talked quietly, sharing stories, building the foundation of whatever they were becoming. "Tell me about Sarah," Isabella said. "She was light," Ethan said, searching for words. "You know how some people just make everything better by being there." That was Sarah. Kids loved her, animals loved her, even cranky old veterans like me loved her. "How did you meet?" "I'd just gotten back from my second tour. Was pretty messed up, drinking too much, fighting too much. Got arrested for punching out some guy in a bar. He deserved it, but still. Judge gave me a choice, jail or community service. I picked service, ended up helping renovate a school. Sarah was teaching there. She took one look at me and decided I was her project." "And you fell in love?" "Not at first. I was too angry, too broken. But Sarah was patient. She'd bring me lunch while I worked, talk to me about her kids, about books, about anything except the war. Slowly, I started to heal, started to remember who I was before the desert, before the killing. 6 months later, I asked her to marry me. She said yes, but only if I promised to stop punishing myself for surviving when others didn't." "Did you stop punishing yourself?" "For a while. When she was alive, it was easy to believe I deserved happiness. After she died..." He shrugged, then winced at the pain in his shoulder. "Maybe that's why I couldn't be there for Michael. Felt like I didn't deserve him either. You're there for him now. That's what counts. What about you? How did you end up with someone like Dominic?" Isabella's laugh was bitter. "I was young, ambitious, impressed by power. He seemed like everything I wanted: successful, confident, charming. By the time I realized the charm was manipulation and the confidence was narcissism, we were married and I was pregnant. I tried to leave when Sophie was 2. He destroyed my company, had me declared mentally unstable, took Sophie for 6 months. I only got her back by agreeing to stay." "But you left again." "I had to. He was getting worse. The control, the anger. And Sophie was getting old enough to understand, to be affected by it. I couldn't let her grow up thinking that was normal." "You're brave. I'm terrified," she corrected. "Every minute of every day. But fear isn't an excuse to let your child suffer. The van arrived as promised, nondescript, reliable, forgettable. They loaded their few possessions, Sophie clutching a stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was a baby. "Ready?" Ethan asked. Isabella looked back at the motel, then at him. "As ready as I'll ever be." They drove through the evening, Sophie asleep in the back. Isabella and Ethan taking turns at the wheel. The roads stretched out before them, leading away from everything they'd known and towards something uncertain but full of possibility. "Ethan," Isabella said as they crossed into Nebraska. "Yeah, what if this doesn't work? What if he finds us? Then we run again, and we keep running until Sophie's old enough to be free of him. That's not much of a life. It's better than the alternative." She reached over and took his hand. "I'm glad you're with us." "So am I." Miles passed in comfortable silence. Then Isabella spoke again. "Tell me about Michael. What's he like?" Ethan smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "He's amazing. Too smart for his own good sometimes. Loves to read like his mom. But he's got a stubborn streak a mile wide that's from me. He's been angry since Sarah died, and I don't blame him. I wasn't there when he needed me most. You're going to be there now. I hope he can forgive me. He will. Children are more forgiving than we deserve. Speaking from experience, Sophie's forgiven me for staying with Dominic as long as I did, for exposing her to that. That wasn't your fault. Wasn't it I chose him? I stayed even when I saw who he was. You were trying to protect her the best way you knew how. That's all any parent can do." They stopped for gas in a small town, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and strangers stood out. Ethan stayed in the van while Isabella paid baseball cap pulled low, Sophie hidden under a blanket. Back on the road, Ethan noticed headlights that had been behind them for the last 50 miles. "We might have company," he said quietly. Isabella checked the mirror. "The black SUV?" "Yeah. Take the next exit, see if they follow." They did. Isabella's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "What do we do?" "Stay calm. Could be coincidence. Pull into that diner up ahead." The SUV pulled in behind them. Two men got out, definitely professional, definitely looking for someone. "Take Sophie and go to the bathroom," Ethan instructed. "Lock the door. I'll handle this. Ethan, your shoulder. Go. Now." They slipped out the passenger side while Ethan exited the driver's side, making himself visible, drawing attention. The men noticed him, immediately started moving in his direction. "Ethan Cole," one called out. "Who's asking?" "Mr. Grant would like a word." "Mr. Grant can go to hell." Now. No need for hostility. He's prepared to make you a very generous offer. $1 million to walk away. $2 million if you tell us where they are. Not interested. Everyone has a price, Mr. Cole. Not everyone. The second man had circled around, trying to flank him. Ethan shifted position, keeping both in sight. "This is your last chance," the first man said. "Take the money and walk away, or things get unpleasant." "Things are already unpleasant." The man sighed. "Have it your way." He reached into his jacket. Ethan moved faster despite his injuries. The tire iron he'd grabbed from the van connected with the man's wrist, sending his gun flying. The second man rushed him, and they went down hard, rolling on the asphalt. Pain exploded through Ethan's shoulder, but he'd fought through worse. He got the man in a chokehold, applied pressure until he went limp. The first man was scrambling for his gun. Ethan kicked it away, then kicked him in the face for good measure. Both men down, but not for long. Ethan grabbed their weapons, threw them in a dumpster, then rushed to the diner bathroom. "It's me," he said, knocking the pattern they'd established. Isabella opened the door, took one look at him, disheveled, bleeding through his shirt again, and asked no questions. "We need to go, now." They ran for the van. Behind them, one of the men was getting to his feet, pulling out his phone. They'd be calling for backup, giving their location. "Drive," Ethan said. "Fast as you can without getting pulled over." Isabella drove. Sophie was crying quietly, the rabbit pressed to her face. "Hey, sweetheart," Ethan said gently. "We're okay. We're safe. Those were Dad's men, weren't they?" "Yeah, but they're gone now. They'll keep coming. Then we'll keep running. Forever. If we have to." Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then, in a small voice, "I hate him." "Sophie," Isabella started. "It's okay to hate him," Ethan interrupted. "He's given you plenty of reason, but don't let that hate eat you up inside. Don't let him have that power over you." "How do I stop it?" "By living well, by being happy despite him, by growing up to be everything he isn't: kind, generous, good." "Is that what you did when bad things happened to you?" Ethan thought about Afghanistan, about friends who didn't come home, about Sarah wasting away in a hospital bed. "I'm still learning," he admitted, "but having people to protect, people to care about, that helps." They changed vehicles twice more that night, Isabella's preparation paying off. By dawn, they were in Wyoming, the mountains rising before them like a promise. "How much further?" Isabella asked. "Another 6 hours, maybe 7. And your friend, he knows we're coming." "He knows. Jake's good people. We served together, saved each other's lives more than once. He won't ask questions." "What about Michael? Have you called your sister?" "I will. When we're safe. When I know we weren't followed." The ranch appeared just after noon, sprawling across a valley with mountains on all sides. It was perfect, isolated, defensible, beautiful. Jake met them at the gate, a grizzled veteran with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Ethan, you look like hell." "Feel worse." "Jake, this is Isabella and Sophie." "Ma'am, little miss. Welcome to Nowhere, Montana. Population not enough to matter." "Thank you," Isabella said. "We're grateful." "No need for that. Ethan saved my life in Kandahar. This doesn't even start to even the score. Come on, let's get you settled." The ranch house was warm and lived in, nothing fancy, but solid and safe. Sophie immediately gravitated toward the dogs, 3 of them, all mutts, all friendly. "Can I pet them?" she asked. "They'd be offended if you didn't," Jake said, while Sophie played with the dogs and Isabella made calls to move more money. Ethan finally called his sister. "Ethan. My God, where have you been? Your shop burned down. The police are looking for you." "I'm okay, Beth. I'm safe." "Is Michael there?" "He's at school." "Ethan, what's going on?" "It's complicated. Beth, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "How's Michael doing?" "Really?" There was a pause. "He's angry, Ethan. He misses his mom. He misses you. He's been getting into fights at school. His grades are slipping. I'm doing my best, but I know you've been amazing. Beth, I want him to come live with me." "What, Ethan, you haven't been stable enough." "I am now. I've got something to fight for, something to build. I want my son with me." "Where are you, Tom?" "Montana. Jake's ranch. It's safe here, Beth. Safer than the city. The police are being fed lies by a very powerful man. I helped a woman and her daughter escape an abusive situation. That's all." "Is that all?" Beth's voice was knowing. "It's becoming more. Maybe. Beth, please. Let me talk to Michael when he gets home." "All right. But Ethan, if you disappear on him again..." "I won't. I swear I won't." 3 hours later, his phone rang. "Dad." Michael's voice suspicious and hopeful in equal measure. "Hey, buddy. Aunt Beth says you want me to come live with you." "I do, but only if you want to." "Where?" "Montana. On a ranch. With horses and dogs and mountains." "Why now? Why do you suddenly want me now?" The hurt in his son's voice was a knife to the heart. "Because I was a coward before," Ethan said honestly. "Because losing Mom broke something in me and I thought you'd be better off without me while I was broken. But I was wrong, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Michael." Silence. "Then, are you fixed now?" "No, but I'm trying, and I think maybe we could help fix each other." "Is there anyone else there, or just you?" "There's a woman named Isabella and her daughter Sophie. She's 7. They need our help and we need theirs." "Are you marrying her?" "No, I don't know. Maybe someday if..." "It's complicated, buddy. Everything's complicated with you." "Yeah, it is. But Michael, I promise you this, if you come here, I will never leave you again. Ever, no matter what." Long silence. "Then when?" "As soon as your Aunt Beth can bring you." "Okay. Okay. Yeah. But Dad, if you break your promise, I won't. You better not." 3 days later, Beth arrived with Michael. Ethan barely recognized his son, taller, leaner. His mother's eyes turned wary and defensive. But when Michael saw him, something cracked in that defensive wall. "Dad." "Hey, buddy." They stood awkwardly for a moment. Then Michael threw himself into Ethan's arms, careful of the injured shoulder he'd noticed. "I missed you," Michael whispered. "I missed you too. Every day." "Don't leave again." "Never." Michael pulled back, noticed Isabella and Sophie watching from the porch. "Is that them?" "Yeah." Michael walked over, stopped in front of Sophie. "I'm Michael." "I'm Sophie. Do you like dogs?" "Love them." "Good. Want to see the puppies?" Jake's dog had puppies. And just like that, they were friends. Isabella moved to stand beside Ethan, watching their children disappear into the barn. "He looks like you," she said. "He has his mother's heart, though. That'll save him." "From what? From becoming like me." "I hope not. The world could use more men like you." Beth stayed for dinner, interrogating Isabella with the protective fury of a sister. But by the end of the meal, she was satisfied. "Take care of them," she told Ethan as she left. "All of them." "I will." Days turned to weeks. They fell into a routine chores in the morning, homeschooling the kids. Isabella turned out to be a natural teacher, helping Jake with the ranch work. Ethan's shoulder healed, leaving another scar to add to his collection. Isabella set up a new business under a false identity, consulting work she could do remotely. They were building something slowly, carefully, a life, a family, a future. But always in the back of their minds was the knowledge that Dominic was still out there, still searching. It came to a head 6 weeks after they'd arrived. Ethan was in the barn teaching Michael to ride when Jake appeared, rifle in hand. "Company coming. 3 vehicles, look official." Ethan's blood went cold. "Get Michael to the house. Tell Isabella to take the kids to the safe room." Jake had been paranoid enough to build a hidden room in the basement stocked with supplies and weapons. They'd hoped never to need it. The vehicles pulled up, not SUVs this time, but sheriff's cars, local law enforcement. Dominic had found them and was using official channels. Sheriff Tom Bradley, whom Jake knew well, looked apologetic as he approached. "Jake, Ethan, I've got papers here, court orders from Illinois. Custody warrant for a Sophie Grant. Her father says she was kidnapped. Tom, Jake said, you know me. Would I harbor kidnappers? I know you'd protect a friend, and I respect that. But the law is the law. The law's wrong, Ethan said. Maybe, but it's still the law. More vehicles were arriving. Not local, these were Dominic's men waiting for the sheriff to do the legal dirty work so they could move in. Tom, Ethan said urgently, that little girl is terrified of her father. He's abusive, controlling. If you take her, you're sending her back to hell. I've got a court order, bought and paid for. You know how these rich bastards operate. Tom wavered, clearly uncomfortable. I need to at least talk to the woman, verify. Sheriff Bradley. A new voice, smooth and cold. Dominic Grant himself stepping out of a black sedan, looking every inch the wronged father. I appreciate your assistance in this matter, Dominic continued. My daughter has been kept from me by a mentally unstable woman and her violent boyfriend. I'm just a father trying to get his little girl back. Mr. Grant, Tom said slowly, I'll need to verify. Of course, I have all the documentation here. Court orders, custody papers, psychiatric evaluations showing Isabella's instability. It's all very clear. Tom looked through the papers, frowning. They looked real, official, but Ethan could see the doubt in his eyes. I'd like to speak to Mrs. Grant, Tom said. Ms. Grant, Dominic corrected. We're divorced, and I'm afraid she's quite dangerous when cornered. I've brought security for everyone's protection. My county, my job, Tom said firmly. Your men stay back. Dominic's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Tom, Ethan, and Jake walked to the house. Isabella was waiting on the porch, composed but pale. Mrs. Grant, I'm Sheriff Bradley. I need to ask you some questions. It's Ms. Harrison now, Isabella said, and I'll answer anything you want. This man says you kidnapped his daughter. I fled with my daughter to escape an abusive situation. I have full legal custody, the real papers, not the forgeries he's showing you. She produced her own documents, worn from folding and refolding, but clearly legitimate. Tom studied them, looked between the two sets of papers. These are dated earlier than his, because his are fake, Sheriff. Dominic Grant has money and power, and he uses both to hurt people. Look up the hospital records, how many times Sophie came in with accidents. Look up the police reports I filed that mysteriously disappeared. Look up the judges he's bought, the cops he owns in Chicago. Those are serious allegations. The truth usually is, Dad, a small voice from inside. Sophie peeking around the doorframe. Is he here? Is he going to take me? The terror in her voice was unmistakable. Tom Bradley had been a sheriff for 20 years. He knew real fear when he heard it. No, sweetheart, he said gently. No one's taking you anywhere you don't want to go. Tom, Ethan said quietly, you know what's right here. Tom stood for a long moment, weighing duty against justice. Then he walked back to where Dominic waited. Mr. Grant, I'm afraid there's some confusion about these documents. We'll need to verify everything through proper channels. Could take weeks, maybe months. Dominic's face darkened. Sheriff, I don't think you understand who you're dealing with. I understand perfectly. You're a rich man used to getting his way, but this is my county and we do things properly here. I could have you removed from office. You could try, but folks around here elected me 4 times running. They trust me to do what's right, not what's easy. Dominic turned to his security team. Get my daughter. Anyone who sets foot on this property without my permission will be arrested, Tom said calmly, hand on his weapon. And if they resist, well, we're all armed out here in Montana. The standoff stretched taut. Behind Dominic's men, more vehicles were arriving, but not his. Local ranchers, Jake's neighbors, armed and ready. Word had spread. The community was closing ranks. "This isn't over," Dominic said finally. "It is for today," Tom replied. Dominic stared at the house, and for a moment Ethan saw something inhuman in his eyes, a rage so deep it bordered on madness. "Isabella," he called out. "You think you've won, you think you can hide forever. I will find you. I will take what's mine, and everyone who helped you will pay." Then he was gone, his convoy disappearing down the dusty road. Tom turned to Ethan. "He'll be back, with federal marshals next time, or FBI, or whoever he can buy. Then we'll be gone. I can give you maybe 48 hours before I have to report this officially." "That's more than enough. Thank you, Tom." "Don't thank me. Just keep that little girl safe." That night they made plans. Canada was out too obvious. Mexico was possible but complicated with children. "I have a contact," Isabella said quietly. "Someone who specializes in making people disappear. New identities, complete histories, everything. That costs. I have money. More than Dominic knows about. I've been moving it for years, preparing." She looked at Ethan. "But this means really disappearing. No contact with family, friends, nothing from our old lives." Ethan thought about Beth, about the shop he'd built, the life he'd had. "My old life ended when Sarah died," he said. "This is my life now." "Mine too," Michael said from the doorway. They hadn't heard him approach. "Wherever Dad goes, I go." "And me," Sophie added, pushing past Michael. "We're a family now, right?" Isabella and Ethan looked at each other, something passing between them. "Yeah," Ethan said. "We're a family." The man Isabella contacted was called Turner, probably not his real name. He arrived the next day, nondescript and professional. 4 people, complete packages. He said all business. "That's a big ask." "Can you do it?" "I can do anything for the right price." Isabella named a figure. Turner didn't blink. "That'll work. I'll need photos, basic information. You'll be Canadians who moved to the States years ago. Easier to explain any gaps. Mr. Cole, you're now Daniel Cross, veteran mechanic widower. Stick close to the truth when you can. Ms. Grant, you're Jennifer Cross, his wife, former teacher. Married 8 years. The boy is yours from your first marriage, Ms. Grant Cross." Explains the age gap with the girl. "We're married?" Isabella asked, glancing at Ethan. "Easier for legal purposes. I can change it if—" "No," Ethan said, meeting Isabella's eyes. "It's fine." "Good. You'll have birth certificates, social security cards, driver's licenses, passports, the works. Even a digital history, social media profiles, credit histories, everything." "Where are you planning to settle?" "We haven't decided," Isabella said. "I'd suggest somewhere mid-sized, big enough to blend in, small enough that everybody doesn't know everybody. Maybe Oregon, Washington. Tech hubs are good, lots of transplants, people don't ask too many questions." "How long?" 2 weeks for everything. In the meantime, lay low." Those 2 weeks were the strangest and best of Ethan's life. Knowing they were leaving, knowing everything was about to change, made every moment precious. He taught Michael to shoot, to ride, to fix engines. Isabella taught Sophie to be brave, to trust, to hope. And slowly, carefully, Ethan and Isabella taught each other to love again. It wasn't dramatic. No grand declarations. Just small moments, her hand finding his while they watched the kids play him, bringing her coffee exactly how she liked it, without being asked, both of them talking late into the night about dreams deferred and second chances. One night with the kids asleep and the stars brilliant overhead, Isabella found him on the porch. Daniel, she said, trying out the new name. Jennifer, he replied. They laughed, but it was nervous laughter. This is crazy, she said. The best things usually are. Ethan, Daniel, whoever you are. What are we doing? Building something. Together. Is it real, or are we just two broken people clinging to each other in a storm? He thought about it, really thought about it. Maybe both. Does it matter? I don't want to be a replacement for Sarah. You're not. You couldn't be. Sarah was my past, my youth, who I was before the world showed me its teeth. You're my present, my equal, who I am after I learned to bite back. He took her hand. I love you differently than I loved her. But I do love you. I love you too. God help me, I shouldn't. It's too fast, too complicated, but I do. Then that's enough. Everything else we'll figure out. Turner returned exactly on schedule with a manila envelope that contained their new lives. Memorize everything, he instructed. Where you were born, where you went to school, your anniversary date. The details matter. What about him? Ethan asked, meaning Dominic. He won't stop looking. No, but he'll be looking for Isabella Grant and Ethan Cole. Those people are about to stop existing. Oh, and Mr. Cole. There's going to be a fire at a cabin in Alaska next week. 2 bodies already dead from natural causes, but they'll match your general descriptions. Dental records will be inconclusive. It won't stop him, but it might slow him down. That's necessary. This man has resources. We need him to believe you might be dead, at least long enough for the trail to go cold. They left the ranch at dawn, Jake shaking Ethan's hand firmly. You ever need anything? I can't contact you. It wouldn't be safe for you. I know. But if you ever really need help, you find a way to let me know. Take care of yourself, Jake. You too, brother. They drove away in a minivan registered to Daniel and Jennifer Cross, heading west toward their new life. In the back seat, Michael was teaching Sophie card tricks. In the front, Isabella Jennifer now held Ethan's Daniel's hand. You okay? He asked. I will be. You? Yeah. I think maybe for the first time in years, I'm actually okay. Even though we're giving up everything. We're not giving up everything. We've got each other, we've got the kids. Everything else is just stuff. Very zen of you. Sarah used to say that happiness isn't about what you have, it's about who you have. Smart woman. She would have liked you. Even though I'm the reason you're giving up your whole life, especially because of that. She always said I needed something worth fighting for. Someone worth protecting. And now you have us. Now I have you. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, then Isabella spoke again. Do you think we'll ever really be free of him? I don't know, but we'll be together, whatever comes. Promise. Promise. Miles later, Sophie piped up from the back. Are we there yet? No, sweetheart, Isabella said. We've got a long way to go. But we're going together, right? Right. Then it's okay. As long as we're together, it's okay. Ethan met Isabella's eyes in the mirror, saw his own thoughts reflected there. The kid was right. As long as they were together, it would be okay. They'd lost their old lives, their old names, their old worlds, but they'd found each other, found a family forged in fear but tempered by love. And maybe, just maybe, that was worth everything they'd sacrificed. The road stretched out before them, leading to an uncertain future. But for the first time in years, Ethan Daniel wasn't afraid of uncertainty. He had something to protect, someone to love, children to raise. He had a purpose again. And somewhere behind them, Dominic Grant searched for people who no longer existed, while ahead of them, Daniel and Jennifer Cross drove toward a new dawn, their children safe in the back seat, their hands intertwined over the center console. It wasn't the life any of them had planned, but it was theirs, and they would defend it with everything they had. Together. The small town of Millbrook, Oregon, had seemed perfect when they'd first arrived 6 months ago. Nestled in the Cascade foothills with a population just under 20,000, it was large enough to disappear into, but small enough to build a life. Daniel Cross had found work at a local garage whose owner was retiring, while Jennifer homeschooled the kids and did her consulting work from their rented farmhouse on the outskirts of town. They'd almost started to believe they were safe. The morning it all began to unravel started like any other. Daniel was under a Chevy Silverado teaching Michael the finer points of transmission repair, when Jennifer's scream cut through the garage like a blade. He rolled out from under the truck so fast he cracked his head on the bumper, but the pain barely registered. Jennifer never screamed. Not even during their closest calls with Dominic's men had she lost control like that. She was standing in the office doorway, her laptop clutched to her chest, her face white as paper. Sophie stood behind her, confused and frightened. "He found us," Jennifer whispered. "Oh God, Daniel, he found us." Daniel crossed to her in 3 strides, took the laptop, and felt his blood turn to ice. On the screen was a video clearly taken from a distance but unmistakable. It showed them at Sophie's school play the previous week, sitting in the audience like any normal family. The angle suggested it had been filmed from the projection booth. Below the video was a single line of text. "Did you really think you could hide forever? Michael, take Sophie to the house." Daniel said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "Lock all the doors and windows. Don't open them for anyone but us." "Dad, what's—" "Now, son." Michael had learned not to argue when his father used that tone. He grabbed Sophie's hand and they ran. Daniel pulled Jennifer into the office, locked the door, and immediately began pulling boxes from the closet. Inside were things he'd hoped never to need again: weapons, cash, burner phones, and a go-bag for each of them. "How?" Jennifer asked, her voice shaking. "Turner said we were clean. The identities were perfect." "Nobody's perfect. Maybe someone recognized us. Maybe Dominic got lucky with facial recognition software. Maybe Turner sold us out. Doesn't matter now. We need to move. We can't keep running forever, Daniel. The kids need stability. They need to be safe." Jennifer's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, Daniel nodded for her to answer it. "Hello, Isabella." Dominic's voice filled the small office through the speaker. Or should I say, Jennifer clever, but not clever enough. "What do you want, Dominic?" "What I've always wanted. My daughter. You can keep the boy, he's not mine after all. But Sophie comes home. She is home. She's living under a false name in a nowhere town with a violent ex-soldier and his damaged son. That's not a home, that's a hideout. It's more of a home than you ever gave her. We can debate that in court." "Oh wait, you can't go to court, can you?" "Not without revealing your false identities. Identity fraud is a federal crime, Isabella. 10 years minimum. Your boyfriend there is looking at even more. He assaulted my security team, destroyed property, kidnapped a child. You know that's not—" "I know what my lawyers will argue. And they're very, very good. But I'm feeling generous. Here's my offer. Sophie returns to me voluntarily, and I forget I ever found you. You can keep playing house with your mechanic. I'll even set up a trust fund for the boy, call it compensation for the trouble." "Go to hell." "I expected that. So here's what's going to happen instead. I've had men watching you for 3 weeks now. I know your routines, your habits, where you shop, where the children play. I know Michael takes the bus to school because he wants to feel normal. I know Sophie has ballet on Thursdays. I know everything. Daniel grabbed the phone. If you touch either of those kids, Mr. Cole, or should I say Sergeant Cole. Oh yes, I know all about you. Distinguished service record, 3 Bronze Stars, 1 Silver Star. Quite the hero, until you came home and fell apart. Wife dead, couldn't handle being a single father, abandoned your son to drink yourself to death, until Isabella gave you purpose again. Your point. My point is that you're unstable, violent, and a danger to my daughter. The incident at your shop 6 months ago proves it. 2 of my men are still in physical therapy. They attacked us. They were attempting to retrieve a kidnapped child. You nearly killed them. I protected my family. Your family. Dominic laughed, cold and mirthless. You're not a family. You're fugitives playing pretend. But I'll give you credit for one thing: you made me work for this. It took considerable resources to find you. What do you want? Daniel repeated Jennifer's earlier question. 24 hours. You have 24 hours to bring Sophie to me. There's a private airfield 30 miles north of your location. Be there tomorrow at noon. If you're not, or if you run, things will get unpleasant. Define unpleasant. Your boy Michael takes bus number 47 to school. Accidents happen. Brake failures in particular are tragically common in these mountainous areas. Daniel's hand tightened on the phone until the plastic creaked. You touch my son and I'll kill you. No, you won't. Because if anything happens to me, my lawyers have instructions. Every law enforcement agency in the country will receive your complete files, real names, fake names, photos, everything. You'll be hunted forever. And Isabella will definitely lose Sophie then, probably to foster care since I won't be around to claim her. You'd orphan your own daughter to win. I never lose, Mr. Cole. 24 hours. The line went dead. Jennifer was already moving, pulling Sophie's favorite things from the desk drawer, where she kept them: a photo album, a necklace that had belonged to Jennifer's mother, small treasures that made their house a home. We're not giving her to him, she said. Of course not. But we can't run either. He's right if he has people watching Michael's bus. So what do we do? Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his mind running through scenarios, tactics, possibilities. In Afghanistan, he'd been known for his ability to see 3 moves ahead to find victory in impossible situations. But this wasn't war, and the enemy held all the cards. Or did he? We need help, Daniel said finally. Real help, the kind that can match Dominic's resources. Who could possibly? Jennifer stopped, her eyes widening. No, Daniel, no, we can't. We have to. If we contact them, we blow our cover completely. Everything Turner built for us is already blown. Dominic knows who we are. The only question now is whether we face him alone or with allies. Jennifer sank into the desk chair, suddenly looking older than her 35 years. Who do we call first? Jake. If anyone can rally the kind of help we need, it's him. The call to Montana was brief, cryptic, but Jake understood immediately. How bad? Was all he asked. As bad as it gets. He found us and he's threatening Michael. I'll make some calls. Still got that cabin up by Crater Lake. Yeah. Go there. Tonight. Help will come. Jake. Brother, you saved my life. Time to return the favor. They picked up the kids from the house, explained what they could. Michael took it with grim determination, but Sophie broke down crying. I don't want to go with him, she sobbed. Please don't make me go with him. Never, Daniel promised, holding her tight. You hear me? Never. The cabin was 2 hours into the mountains, accessible only by a logging road that most people didn't know existed. It was their last resort, their final fallback position. Daniel had stocked it months ago with supplies, weapons, and everything they'd need to survive off-grid if necessary. They arrived as the sun was setting, painting the mountains blood red. The cabin was small but solid, built to withstand mountain winters. Daniel immediately began setting up defensive positions while Jennifer got the kids settled. "Dad," Michael said, helping him check the weapons. "Are we going to have to fight?" "Maybe." "You scared?" "Yeah." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. But remember what I taught you, fear is just information. It tells you to pay attention, to be ready. It doesn't control you unless you let it." "Mom wouldn't want us to fight." Daniel paused, thinking of Sarah. "Your mom would want us to protect each other. She was the strongest person I ever knew, Michael. She fought cancer with more courage than I ever showed in combat. She'd understand that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies even when they're bigger and stronger than you." "Is that what Mr. Grant is, a bully?" "The worst kind. The kind who thinks money and power give him the right to hurt people." "But he's Sophie's dad." "Biology doesn't make you a father-son. Love does. Sacrifice does. Being there does. Dominic Grant might be Sophie's biological father, but he's never been her dad." As night fell, they settled in to wait. Jennifer and Daniel took turns standing watch while the kids tried to sleep. Around midnight, Daniel heard engines approaching, multiple vehicles moving fast, but without headlights. He woke Jennifer, positioned himself at the window with his rifle. But as the vehicles got closer, he recognized the lead truck. Jake's Ford F-150, followed by 2 SUVs and a van. The cavalry had arrived. Jake wasn't alone. With him were 6 other veterans, all men Daniel had served with at various times. There was Martinez, a sniper who could shoot the wings off a fly at 1,000 yards. Johnson, who'd been Delta Force before a bad knee ended his career. Thompson and Williams, explosive experts. Chen, who'd gone into private security after his discharge. And surprisingly, Doc Ramirez from the off-books clinic. "Heard you had a billionaire problem," Martinez said, unloading a case that Daniel recognized as a high-powered rifle. "Thought we'd even the odds a bit." "This isn't your fight," Daniel said, though gratitude was thick in his voice. "Like hell it isn't," Johnson replied. "You think we're going to let some rich prick threaten a kid, threaten your kid? Besides," Jake added, "we're not your only backup." More vehicles were arriving. Daniel recognized Tom Bradley, the Montana sheriff who'd stood up to Dominic before, out of uniform but armed. With him were 3 deputies also off duty. "This is outside your jurisdiction, Tom," Daniel said. "I'm on vacation," Tom replied. "What I do on my own time is my business." But the real surprise came an hour later when a helicopter landed in the nearby clearing. Out stepped a woman Daniel had never seen before. Mid-40s, sharp suit, even in the middle of nowhere, with the bearing of someone used to command. "Mr. Cole," she said, extending a hand. "Adrian Winters. Was Isabella's business partner before Dominic destroyed our company." Jennifer came out of the cabin, stopped dead. "Adrian, how did you—" "Jake found me. Made a compelling case. Plus, I've been waiting years for a chance to take Dominic down." She smiled, cold and sharp. "I've brought some friends." The friends turned out to be a legal team, a media crew, and most surprisingly, a judge, the Honorable Patricia Chen from the Illinois Supreme Court. "Judge Chen," Jennifer gasped. "But you, Dominic, said you were bought." "He tried. When I refused, he tried to destroy me. Almost succeeded, too, but I've been gathering evidence on him for years. When Ms. Winters contacted me, I realized this might be our chance." Daniel looked around at the assembled group: soldiers, lawmen, lawyers, and judges. "You're talking about taking him on directly." "I'm talking about ending this," Adrian said. "Permanently, legally." "He has judges in his pocket." "Not all of them," Judge Chen interrupted. "And not federal ones. I've been in contact with the FBI. They've been building a case against Dominic for years, racketeering, bribery, judicial corruption. They just needed someone brave enough to testify. If Jennifer testifies, she admits to identity fraud. Already handled, Adrian said, producing a folder. I've had some interesting conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office. They're willing to grant full immunity in exchange for testimony. Turns out, fleeing from domestic abuse and protecting a child are what they call mitigating circumstances. It can't be that simple, Jennifer said. It's not, Judge Chen admitted. Dominic won't go down without a fight. He'll use every resource, call in every favor, threaten everyone involved. That's why we need to be smart about this. We need to control the narrative. Hence the media crew, the lead journalist said, stepping forward. Robert Chen, no relation to the judge. Washington Post. We've been investigating Dominic Grant for 2 years. This story, a mother fleeing an abusive billionaire, a war hero protecting them, a community standing up to corruption. This is the kind of story that changes things. Daniel shook his head. You want to use us as bait. I want to use you as heroes, Robert corrected. Which from what I've heard you are. And if Dominic comes after the kids before your story runs, that's why we're here, Jake said, indicating the armed veterans. Anyone wants to hurt those kids has to go through us. And us, Tom Bradley added. Daniel looked at Jennifer. This was her call, her past, her ex-husband, her daughter at stake. Jennifer stood straighter, and Daniel saw the CEO she'd once been, the woman who'd built a company from nothing, who'd survived years of Dominic's abuse and still had the strength to run. What do you need me to do? She asked. The plan was complex but elegant. At dawn, Jennifer would call Dominic, agree to the meeting, but insist on a public location, the Millbrook County Courthouse. She'd tell him she wanted everything legal and above board. His ego wouldn't let him refuse the chance to humiliate her publicly. Meanwhile, Judge Chen would file emergency motions in federal court, challenging the validity of Dominic's custody claims. The media would be alerted. The FBI would be watching. He'll bring an army, Daniel warned. Let him all, Martinez said, checking his rifle. We've got overwatch positions already scouted. He makes one wrong move. No killing unless absolutely necessary, Tom Bradley said firmly. We do this legal or we're no better than him. And the kids? Jennifer asked. Safe house, Adrian said. I own a property 2 towns over, completely off the books. Chen's team will guard them. Daniel didn't like splitting up, but he knew it was the smart play. Sophie couldn't be there when they confronted Dominic. It would be too traumatic, too dangerous. That night, as they prepared, Daniel found Michael sitting alone on the cabin's porch, staring at the stars. You okay, buddy? I'm scared, Michael admitted. Not of the fighting, of after. What do you mean? If this works, if Mr. Grant goes to jail, then what? Do we go back to being Ethan and Isabella? Do we stay Daniel and Jennifer? Who are we? Daniel sat beside his son, chose his words carefully. We're who we choose to be. Names don't matter as much as actions. Whatever happens tomorrow, we're still a family. But we're built on a lie. No, we're built on love, on protection, on sacrifice. That's as true as it gets. Mom would have liked Jennifer, Michael said quietly. Yeah, she would have. She would have loved Sophie, too. Do you think we'll ever be normal? Daniel laughed softly. Son, normal is overrated. We're better than normal. We're strong. Morning came too soon. Daniel kissed Sophie goodbye, promising her everything would be okay, that she'd see them soon. She clung to him, then to Jennifer, brave despite her fear. Be careful, she whispered. Don't let him hurt you. Never again, Jennifer promised. The drive to Millbrook was tense. They were in a convoy now, Daniel and Jennifer in the lead vehicle, Jake and the veterans behind them, the legal team following, media scattered throughout the town, ready to document everything. Dominic was already there when they arrived, standing on the courthouse steps like he owned them. With him were 20 men, all obviously security, all armed. But there were also lawyers' assistants and, surprisingly, media of his own. "He's going to spin this," Jennifer said. "Let him try," Daniel replied. They got out of the car, walked toward the courthouse. Dominic's smile was triumphant, predatory. "Isabella, so good of you to come to your senses. And Mr. Cole, I see you brought friends. How touching." "We're here to settle this legally," Jennifer said, her voice carrying across the square. "Once and for all." "Of course. I have the custody papers right here. Sign them and you can go back to your little fantasy life." "I have papers too," Judge Chen and Saeed Tateping forward. "Federal injunctions filed this morning. Your custody claim is under review, Mr. Grant. Until that review is complete, Sophie remains with her mother." Dominic's face darkened. "You have no jurisdiction here." "Federal court does, especially in cases involving interstate flight from domestic violence." "There was no violence." "I have documentation that says otherwise," Jennifer said, pulling out a thick folder. "Hospital records, photographs, recordings. Years of abuse, all carefully documented." "Those are fabrications." "Then you won't mind if we make them public?" Robert Chen asked his camera crew, stepping into view. "Let the people decide." For the first time, Dominic looked uncertain. His lawyers huddled around him, whispering urgently. "This is ambush journalism," one of them declared. "We'll sue." "Go ahead," Adrian said. "Discovery should be fascinating. I'm particularly interested in your client's financial records, all those judges he's contributed to, all those suspicious transactions." "You're making a mistake," Dominic said, his voice low and dangerous. "All of you. I don't lose." "You lost the moment you tried to own people," Daniel said, stepping forward. "Your daughter isn't property. Her mother isn't your possession. And you sure as hell don't own this town or these people." Big words from a nobody mechanic. "I'd rather be a nobody who stands for something than a somebody who falls for everything." Dominic laughed, cold and sharp. "You think this is over? You think your little coalition of losers can stop me? I own judges, senators, police commissioners. I'll bury all of you." "Actually," a new voice said, "you won't." Everyone turned. Walking up the courthouse steps were 3 people in FBI windbreakers, credentials out. "Dominic Grant," the lead agent said, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, racketeering, bribery of public officials, and judicial corruption. This is ridiculous. My lawyers are also under investigation. You have the right to remain silent." As they cuffed him, Dominic's composure finally cracked. He lunged toward Jennifer, screaming threats and obscenities. Daniel intercepted him, one hand stopping him cold. "It's over," Daniel said quietly. "You lost. I'll destroy you, all of you. You'll go to prison," Judge Chen said. "For a very long time." As they led him away, Dominic kept screaming, his words becoming increasingly incoherent. The mighty billionaire reduced to a ranting madman, his empire crumbling in real time as the media broadcast everything. Jennifer was shaking. Daniel wrapped his arms around her, held her as she cried tears of relief, of release, of freedom. "It's over," she whispered. "It's really over." "Yeah," Daniel said, though he kept watching until Dominic's vehicle disappeared. Men like that didn't give up easily. The celebration at the cabin that night was subdued but genuine. Sophie and Michael were reunited with them, the family whole again. The veterans stayed setting up a protective perimeter just in case, but the threat felt distant, now manageable. "So what now?" Jake asked, nursing a beer by the fire. "You going back to being Ethan and Isabella?" Daniel and Jennifer exchanged glances. They'd talked about it, made their decision. "No," Jennifer said. "We've been Daniel and Jennifer Cross for months now. That's who we are. That's who the kids know us as. Ethan Cole and Isabella Grant, they're the past." The prosecutor said the identity fraud charges won't stick given the circumstances, Judge Chen added. "You can legally change your names, make it official." "A fresh start," Daniel said, pulling Jennifer closer. "A real one this time." "There's one more thing," Jennifer said, looking nervous. "Daniel and I have been talking and, well, we're getting married," Daniel finished. "For real this time." The cheer that went up could probably be heard in town. Sophie jumped into Daniel's arms while Michael hugged Jennifer, and for a moment, just a moment, they were simply a family celebrating good news. But later, as the party wound down, Tom Bradley pulled Daniel aside. "You know Dominic's not done right, even from prison. He'll have resources." "I know. You'll need to stay vigilant." "We will. And if you need help, I know where to find you." Tom nodded, shook his hand. "You did good, Daniel. Sarah would be proud." As the guests departed and the kids went to bed, Daniel and Jennifer stood on the porch looking at the stars. "Do you think we'll ever really be free of him?" Jennifer asked. "Maybe not completely," Daniel admitted. "But we're free enough. Free to live, to love, to raise our kids without fear." "Our kids," Jennifer repeated, smiling. "I like the sound of that." "Me too." "Daniel, yeah, thank you for everything, for standing up to him, for protecting us, for giving us a home." "You gave me a home too," Daniel said. "You gave me a reason to be better. We saved each other." "Yeah, we did." They stood in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in the worst of circumstances and built something beautiful from the wreckage of their old lives. Inside, Sophie called out in her sleep, a nightmare probably. Jennifer moved to go to her, but Daniel caught her hand. "I've got this one," he said. He went inside, found Sophie sitting up in bed, tears on her cheeks. "Bad dream." She nodded. "He was there. He was taking me away. He can't hurt you anymore, sweetheart. He's going to jail for a long time. Promise. Promise. And even if he wasn't, I'd never let him take you. Neither would your mom or Michael or any of the people who were here tonight. You're surrounded by people who love you, Sophie. You're safe." She hugged him tight. "I love you, Daniel. Can I call you Dad?" Daniel's throat closed up. He thought of Sarah, of what she'd say, and knew she'd approve. "I'd be honored," he managed. "And Michael's my brother now. If you want him to be." "I do. We're a real family, right?" "The realest," Daniel assured her. As she settled back to sleep, Daniel rejoined Jennifer on the porch. She was crying again, but these were happy tears. "I heard," she said. "She's something special. So are you." They kissed under the stars, two wounded souls who'd found healing in each other, who'd built a family from the ashes of their past lives. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be trials to testify, at a wedding, to plan children, to raise lives, to rebuild. Dominic's shadow would linger even from behind bars. But tonight, they were together, they were safe, and they were free. And that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. The trial date was set for 3 months out, and those months passed in a deceptive calm that Daniel didn't trust. Dominic had been denied bail. The judge deemed him a flight risk with his resources. But his lawyers filed motion after motion, appeal after appeal. The media attention had died down after the initial frenzy, and life in Millbrook had returned to something approaching normal. Daniel should have known it wouldn't last. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday afternoon. Daniel was at the garage, having bought it from the retiring owner with some of Jennifer's carefully hidden funds. Michael was helping after school, learning the business. It was peaceful, ordinary, the kind of life Daniel had never dared dream of. Then Martinez called. "We've got a problem," he said without preamble. "3 of Dominic's former security team just got early release from prison. Paperwork says good behavior, but my contacts say money changed hands. Where are they now? That's the problem. Nobody knows. They disappeared right after release." Daniel's instincts, honed in combat and sharpened by months of vigilance, screamed danger. How many others might he mobilize? From prison, none directly. But Danny, his mother, is still out there. Margaret Grant. She's got almost as much money as he does, and she's been real quiet since her son got arrested. Margaret Grant. Daniel had researched her extensively, a cold, calculating woman who'd helped build the Grant empire through marriages and mergers, each husband dying under mysterious circumstances. If she was mobilizing... "I need to get to Jennifer and Sophie," Daniel said, already moving. "I'll call the others. We'll meet at your place." But when Daniel called Jennifer, her phone went straight to voicemail. Sophie was at ballet. Jennifer always watched from the studio's parent area. They should both be there, safe, visible. Daniel ran to his truck, tried calling again. Nothing. He called the dance studio. "Oh, Mrs. Cross left about 20 minutes ago," the receptionist said. "Her mother-in-law came to pick them up. Said there was a family emergency." Daniel's blood turned to ice. Jennifer's supposed mother-in-law was dead, part of their cover story, and Jennifer would never leave with anyone without telling him. He called Jake. "They've got Jennifer and Sophie." "What, how?" "Doesn't matter. Get everyone to the garage. That's where they'll come." "How do you know?" "Because that's where this started. Dominic's got a sense of drama. He'll want to end it where it began." Daniel drove like a man possessed, running red lights, taking corners on 2 wheels. His phone rang, unknown number. "Mr. Cole?" The voice was female, cultured, cold. "Margaret Grant." "Or should I still call you Mr. Cross?" "Where are they, Tom?" "Safe, but for now. You have something that belongs to my family, Mr. Cole. Several somethings, actually. My granddaughter, for one, and my son's freedom for another." "Your son is a monster." "My son is a Grant. We don't abandon our own." "What do you want?" "Simple. You're going to recant your testimony. Say you coerced Isabella, manipulated her, that Dominic was only trying to save his daughter from a violent criminal. The media will eat it up. War hero turns out to be unstable, PTSD-driven kidnapper. Jennifer will never. Isabella won't have to say anything. Traumatized victims often can't. You'll take all the blame, go to prison, and Dominic will get out on appeal. Isabella will be declared mentally incompetent. We have doctors ready to testify, and Sophie will go where she belongs. You're insane. I'm a mother protecting her son. You should understand that. Speaking of which, your boy Michael is at the garage alone right now, isn't he? Working on that Chevy. Accidents happen in garages, Mr. Cole. Hydraulic lifts fail, gas leaks occur. Daniel floored at tires, screaming. If you heard him, then come home, Mr. Cole. We have so much to discuss. The line went dead. Daniel called Michael's phone. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. He was 5 minutes out, driving like hell itself was chasing him. His phone buzzed. A text from Michael's phone, but not from Michael. A photo his son unconscious tied to a chair in what looked like the garage's back room. Jennifer and Sophie were visible in the background, also restrained. Another text, "Come alone, back entrance. Any sign of your friends and they all die." Daniel knew it was a trap. Knew he should wait for backup plan, be smart. But that was his family in there. His son, the woman he loved, the little girl who called him Dad. He parked a block away, approached on foot. The garage looked normal from the front, closed for the evening like always. But as he circled to the back, he saw them, 3 men, professionals, armed and ready. They'd been waiting. "Weapons," one said simply. Daniel handed over his SIG, the backup revolver from his ankle holster, the knife from his belt. They searched him thoroughly, found the ceramic blade in his boot, the garrote wire in his belt. Inside. The garage had been transformed into a killing floor. More men, he counted 8 total, positioned strategically. Margaret Grant stood in the center, immaculate in a designer suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. She was older than Dominic, maybe 65, but carried herself like royalty. His family was there as photographed. Michael was starting to stir, a bruise darkening on his temple. Jennifer's eyes were wide with fear and fury in equal measure. Sophie was crying silently. "Mr. Cole," Margaret said, "so good of you to join us." "Let them go. This is between us." "Nothing is between us. You're nobody, an insect who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But you've caused my family considerable inconvenience. Your family. Your son is a sociopathic abuser." Margaret slapped him hard enough to snap his head to the side. Her rings cut his cheek. "My son is a Grant. That means something. Power, legacy, continuation of the bloodline. That little girl carries Grant genes. She belongs with us. She belongs with her mother. Her mother is weak, always was. Dominic chose poorly, but the child can be salvaged. Raised properly, she could be magnificent. Raised by you, she'd be another monster." Margaret smiled, cold as winter. "Monster is such a limited word. We prefer survivor." "Do you know how the Grant fortune was built, Mr. Cole? My grandfather started with nothing, just determination and the will to do whatever was necessary. He understood that mercy is weakness, that love is leverage, that everyone has a price. I don't." "No." "Then perhaps you won't mind if I start with the boy." She nodded to one of her men who pressed a gun to Michael's temple. "No." Daniel started forward, but 2 men grabbed his arms, forced him to his knees. "Dad." Michael was awake now, terrified but trying to be brave. "It's okay, son. It's going to be okay." "Lying to children," Margaret tutted. "So cruel. Nothing about this is okay. You've destroyed my son's life, Mr. Cole. Turned him into a laughingstock, a cautionary tale. Do you know what they're calling him in prison? The billionaire who lost to a mechanic?" "Good." She hit him again, this time with a closed fist. Daniel tasted blood. "You're going to fix this," she said. "You're going to confess that you manipulated Isabella, that you kidnapped Sophie, that Dominic was only trying to skew his daughter. You'll go to prison, and my son will be free." "Never." "Then we'll start with fingers. The boy's first, I think. He won't be much of a mechanic missing a few fingers." "Wait." Jennifer spoke for the first time. "Please, Margaret, please. I'll do whatever you want. I'll say Dominic was right, that I was unstable, that Daniel manipulated me. Just don't hurt them." "Mom, no," Sophie cried out. Margaret considered. "Tempting. But no. You've proven you can't be trusted, Isabella. You had everything, wealth, status, the Grant name, and you threw it away for this." She gestured dismissively at Daniel. No, you're too damaged to be useful. But Mr. Cole here, the war hero turned villain. That's a story that will stick. I won't do it. Then I'll kill them all, starting with the boy. The man with the gun pressed it harder against Michael's temple. Daniel saw his son close his eyes, saw him mouth something, probably a prayer to his mother. Stop, Daniel said. Stop. I'll do it. Dad, no. Excellent choice, Margaret said. Marcus, bring the camera. We'll record his confession now. As they set up the equipment, Daniel's mind raced. Jake and the others had to be close by now. But 8 armed men, his family as hostages, the math was bad. Someone would die if this went sideways. Unless the garage had old propane heaters, massive tanks connected to the system. They were shut off for the summer, but the tanks were still there, still full. If he could create a distraction, threaten something big enough. Ready when you are, Mr. Cole, Marcus said, the red light on the camera blinking. Daniel stood slowly, his captors allowing it. He moved toward the camera, then stumbled, catching himself on the workbench where the propane controls were. Careful, Margaret said. We need you coherent. Daniel's hand found the valve, turned it slightly. Just enough for a slow leak, not enough to be immediately noticed. My name is Daniel Cross. He began playing for time. Also known as Ethan Cole. Wrong, Margaret interrupted. Start over. Your real name. My name is Ethan Cole, he said again, louder this time, hoping his voice would carry. I'm here under duress with my family being threatened by Margaret Grant. Cut the camera, Margaret snapped. Mr. Cole, you seem confused about the situation. Perhaps you need motivation. She pulled out a knife, silver and sharp. The little girl's face is so pretty. It would be a shame if... That's when Daniel smelled it. The propane was spreading. Others would notice soon. You hurt her, and you'll never get what you want, Daniel said. Won't I, a disfigured granddaughter, would still be a Grant. And it would certainly motivate you. She moved toward Sophie. Daniel acted without thinking, pure instinct taking over. He grabbed a wrench from the workbench, threw it with deadly accuracy. It caught Margaret in the shoulder, spinning her around. Shoot him, she screamed. The garage erupted in chaos. Daniel dove for cover as bullets shattered the air where he'd been standing. He rolled behind an engine block, his hand finding a screwdriver better than nothing. Dad, Michael yelled. One of the guards had abandoned him to join the fight. Michael was working at his bonds, the kid smart enough to use the distraction. More gunfire, but then Daniel heard something else shouting from outside. Jake's voice. Daniel, we're here. Gas leak, Daniel shouted back. Stay clear. Margaret's men were professional enough to understand the danger. 2 of them immediately moved for the exits. But Margaret herself was focused only on rage. Kill them all, she ordered. Daniel broke cover, not away from danger, but toward it. He tackled the man nearest to his family. They went down hard, wrestling for the gun. Daniel Osson Sainsvan had turned it away, the shot going wild. His other hand found the man's throat, squeezed until he went limp. Another man was bearing down on him. Daniel rolled, came up with the unconscious man's weapon, fired twice. The attacker dropped. The gas, Marcus shouted. We need to get out. The smell was overwhelming now. Any spark, any flame, and the whole building would go up. Michael had gotten free, was working on Jennifer's bonds. Smart kid, brave kid, Sarah's son through and through. 3 men left, plus Margaret. They were backing toward the exit, laying down covering fire. Daniel couldn't get to his family without crossing their line of fire. Then the lights went out. Jake had cut the power. In the darkness, Daniel moved. He knew this garage like his own home, every tool, every corner. His attackers didn't. He heard one crash into something curse. Another fired blindly muzzle flash, giving away his position. Daniel struck from the darkness, swift and lethal. One down, two down. The third made it to the emergency exit, flooding the space with streetlight. Margaret stood illuminated in the doorway, her knife at Sophie's throat. Somehow, in the chaos, she'd gotten to the girl. "Nobody move," she commanded. Jennifer screamed. Michael started forward, but Daniel caught him. "Let her go," Daniel said. "You can't win this." "I never lose," Margaret said, backing toward a waiting car. "The girl comes with me." "No." Sophie struggled, brave little Sophie, and the knife pressed harder. Daniel saw blood, just a drop, but it was enough. He moved without conscious thought, crossing the space between them faster than should have been possible. His hand caught Margaret's wrist, twisted. The knife fell. His other hand struck her throat, a precise blow that dropped her gasping. Sophie fell into his arms, sobbing. He held her tight, checking the cut, shallow, barely more than a scratch. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're okay." Jennifer and Michael reached them, the family clinging together in a desperate embrace. "We need to go," Jake said from the doorway. "Cops are coming, and this place is about to blow." They ran, making it to the street just as the first police cars arrived. Behind them, a spark from somewhere, maybe electrical, maybe a ricochet, found the gas. The explosion was spectacular. The garage erupted in a ball of fire that lit up the night sky. Windows shattered for blocks. Car alarms screamed. But Daniel barely noticed. He was holding his family, all of them alive, all of them safe. Margaret Grant was arrested on scene, barely conscious, but breathing. Her men, those who survived, were rounded up. The camera's news crews that had been monitoring the situation caught it all. Tom Bradley arrived, taking in the scene with professional calm. "Anyone want to tell me what happened here?" "Self-defense," Jake said simply. Everything was self-defense. "That's going to be a lot of paperwork." "But worth it," Tom said, looking at the family huddled together. "Definitely worth it." Hours later, after statements and medical checks and more statements, they were finally home. The farmhouse felt like a sanctuary, solid and safe and theirs. Michael was the first to break. The boy who'd been so brave finally let himself cry, great gasping sobs that shook his whole body. Daniel held him, rocked him like he had when he was small before Sarah died, before the world got so complicated. "I thought they were going to kill you," Michael whispered. "I wouldn't let them." "You can't always stop bad things, Dad. Mom couldn't stop the cancer." "No," Daniel agreed. "But I can stop bad people, and I will every time to protect you." Sophie hadn't left Jennifer's side, the little girl unusually quiet. The cut on her throat had been bandaged, would heal without a scar, but the emotional wounds would take longer. "She was going to take me," Sophie said finally. "Back to him." "Never," Jennifer said fiercely. "Never again." "But she said I was a Grant, that I belonged with them." Daniel knelt in front of her, gentle but firm. "You know what? She was wrong. You're not a Grant. You're a Cross. You're our daughter, Michael's sister. That's who you are. But my blood doesn't make family, Sophie. Choice does. Love does. And we choose you every day, always." Sophie threw her arms around his neck, holding on like he might disappear. "I choose you too," she whispered. "All of you." They slept in the living room that night, all four of them unwilling to be apart. Daniel stayed awake, standing, watch his weapon close at hand. Every sound made him tense, every shadow could be a threat. But no one came. Margaret was in custody, her resources frozen, her network dismantled. Dominic was still in prison, his appeal dead in the water after his mother's violent attempt to free him. As dawn broke, Jennifer stirred beside him. "You're thinking too loud," she murmured. "Sorry." "Don't be. I'm thinking too." She sat up, studied his face in the pale light. "How many more times, Daniel? How many more times will they come for us?" "I don't know." "That's not very reassuring." "But each time they do, I'll stop them. We'll stop them, together." What if next time? There might not be a next time. Margaret was Dominic's last real ally with resources. The rest of his network is either in prison or distancing themselves from the Grant name. "You really think it's over?" Daniel wanted to lie to give her the comfort of certainty, but she deserved truth. "I think we've won this round, decisively. But men like Dominic, families like the Grants, they don't accept defeat easily. We'll need to stay vigilant. Forever." "Maybe. Is that a deal breaker?" Jennifer was quiet for a long moment, then shook her head. "No, because the alternative, giving up, giving in, letting them win, that's not living. This what we have, even with the danger, it's worth fighting for." "You sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." They kissed soft and sweet, a promise without words. "Mom, Dad." Sophie's voice sleepy but hopeful. "Is it morning?" "Almost, sweetheart," Jennifer said. "Can we have pancakes?" Such a normal request after such an abnormal night. But that was children, resilient, adaptable, finding joy even in the aftermath of trauma. "Pancakes sound perfect," Daniel said. "With chocolate chips," Michael added, waking up. "Don't push it," Daniel said, but he was smiling. They made breakfast together, the four of them crowding the small kitchen, bumping elbows, laughing at nothing and everything. It was domestic, ordinary, perfect. The phone rang as they were eating. Robert Chen from the Washington Post. "Daniel, you need to see the news." Daniel turned on the TV, flipped to CNN. The headline stopped him cold. "Grant Empire Crumbles, Federal Investigation Reveals Decades of Corruption." The report was comprehensive. With Margaret's arrest and the evidence from her attempted kidnapping, federal investigators had gotten warrants for everything: financial records, communications, years of carefully hidden crimes. The Grant Empire wasn't just wounded, it was dead. Dominic's been charged with 16 additional counts. Robert continued over the phone. He's looking at life without parole. Margaret's facing attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy. She'll die in prison. "It's really over," Jennifer breathed. "The legal parts, yes," Robert said. "But Daniel, there's something else. The story of what you did, protecting your family, standing up to corruption, it's everywhere. You're national news. Heroes, all of you." Daniel's stomach dropped. "We don't want—" "I know. But the cat's out of the bag. You might want to prepare for what's coming." What came was a tsunami of attention. Media requests, interview offers, book deals, movie rights. Everyone wanted their story, their presence, their time. Daniel and Jennifer made one decision, gave one interview, a joint appearance where they told their truth simply and honestly. Then they disappeared from public view, refusing all other offers. "We just want to live our lives," Jennifer told the reporters camped outside their home. "We've had enough attention for a lifetime." It took weeks for the media to lose interest, to move on to the next story. But eventually, they did. Life in Millbrook slowly returned to normal. Daniel's garage had to be rebuilt from the ground up. Insurance covered it, and the community pitched in to help. The new building was better than the old, more modern, more secure, with an apartment above it, that could serve as a safe room if needed. Michael returned to school where he was something of a celebrity. He handled it with his mother's grace, deflecting attention, focusing on his studies and his friends. Sophie started second grade, her teacher reporting that she was bright, kind, and protective of younger children. The trauma hadn't broken her. It had made her stronger, more empathetic. Jennifer rebuilt her consulting business, this time under her real name. Clients came flooding back, eager to work with the woman who'd stood up to the Grants and won. And Daniel fixed cars, raised his children, loved his wife. Simple things, ordinary things, but to him, miraculous. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. Jake was Daniel's best man, Michael the ring bearer. Sophie scattered flower petals with enthusiastic abandon. Judge Chen officiated, having become a close friend through everything. Do you, Daniel Cross, take Jennifer Harrison to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Do you, Jennifer Harrison, take Daniel Cross to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do. Then by the power vested in me by the state of Oregon, I now pronounce you husband and wife. They kissed and everyone cheered, and for that moment there was no past, no danger, no shadow of the Grants. There was just love, family, and the promise of tomorrow. The reception was in Jake's barn, decorated with lights and flowers. Sophie danced on Daniel's feet while Michael spun Jennifer around, all of them laughing. The veterans who'd stood with them raised their glasses in toast after toast, celebrating not just the wedding, but the victory, the survival, the family forged in fire. You know what Sarah would say? Jake asked, finding Daniel during a quiet moment. What? She'd say you kept your promise. You remembered how to be a protector. You stood between the darkness and the innocent. I had help. We all need help sometimes. That's what makes us human. As the night wound down, Daniel found himself outside looking at the stars. Jennifer joined him, still in her wedding dress, beautiful and fierce, ours and his. Regrets? She asked. None. You, not a single one. Even though we'll always be looking over our shoulders. We won't, Jennifer said firmly. I refuse to live that way. We won, Daniel. We beat them. And now we get to live our lives. That simple. They went back inside where Michael and Sophie had fallen asleep on a couch, curled up together like puppies. Daniel lifted Michael, while Jennifer carried Sophie, and they took their children home. Their real home under their real names, or real enough with their real family. The Grants were past. This was their future. And it was beautiful. 3 years had passed since the wedding, 3 years of something approaching peace. Sophie was 10 now, confident and bright, while Michael had grown into a thoughtful 15-year-old who helped at the garage after school. The rebuilt shop was thriving, with Daniel having hired 2 mechanics to help with the workload. Jennifer's consulting firm had expanded too, with 3 employees working remotely and clients across the country. They'd even bought a house, a real one, not a rental, with a big yard where Sophie could practice soccer and Michael could work on his project cars. It had a security system, of course, subtle but comprehensive. Old habits died hard. Daniel should have known it was too good to last. The call came on a Thursday evening while they were having dinner. Jennifer's phone, unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Her face went white as she listened. When? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Then Hao Tong. Daniel was already standing ready for whatever threat had found them. But when Jennifer hung up, she wasn't afraid, she was stunned. Dominic's dead, she said. Killed in prison this morning. Another inmate, apparently over a gambling debt. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sophie dropped her fork. Michael went very still. He's really dead? Sophie asked, her voice small. Yes, sweetheart. He's really dead. Daniel expected to feel relief, maybe even satisfaction. Instead, he felt uneasy. Dominic Grant didn't die over gambling debts. He was too smart, too protected, too valuable to other inmates, who he could pay for protection. "Who called you?" Daniel asked. "The federal prosecutor. They wanted to inform me before it hit the news." Within an hour, it was everywhere. Dominic Grant, disgraced billionaire, murdered in federal prison. The details were sparse: a shiv in the shower, no witnesses, the killer claiming self-defense over unpaid debts. But Daniel knew better. This had Margaret written all over it, even from her own cell. One last act of violence, though he couldn't figure out the angle. The answer came at midnight. Daniel woke to the smell of smoke. Not cigarette smoke, fire. The house was burning. "Jennifer, kids." He shook Jennifer awake, then ran to the hallway. Smoke was already thick, pooling at the ceiling. The fire was downstairs, but spreading fast. Michael's room first. His son was already awake, coughing. "Dad, we're getting out. Stay low, cover your mouth." Sophie's room next. She was terrified but brave, clinging to his hand as they crawled beneath the smoke. Jennifer had grabbed the emergency bag they kept in their bedroom, documents, cash, the basics they'd need if they had to run. The stairs were impassable, flames licking up from below. Someone had used an accelerant, probably gasoline, making sure the fire would spread too fast for escape routes. "The window," Daniel said, leading them to the master bedroom. "Fire ladder." They'd installed emergency ladders in the upstairs rooms, another paranoid precaution that might save their lives. Daniel deployed it, helped Sophie onto his back. "Hold tight, sweetheart." The descent was harrowing, Sophie's arms around his neck, the metal ladder hot from the spreading fire. Jennifer came next with Michael. They made it to the ground, just as the windows on the first floor exploded outward from the heat. Standing in their yard, watching their home burn, Daniel saw them, 3 figures in the shadows across the street. Not hiding, wanting to be seen. "Stay here," he told his family, but Jennifer grabbed his arm. "Don't. That's what they want." She was right. It was bait trying to draw him out, separate him from his family. Instead, Daniel pulled out his phone, called 911, then Jake, then Tom Bradley. Help was coming. The figures melted away into the night, their message delivered. The war wasn't over. It had just changed. The fire department saved the structure, but the house was gutted. Everything they'd built, all the normal life they'd created, reduced to ash and smoke. They stood in the street, wrapped in Red Cross blankets, watching firefighters work. "It was arson," the fire chief told them. "No question. Accelerant poured around all the exits. You're lucky you had those ladders." Not luck. Preparation. But Daniel didn't say that. Jake arrived with his truck, Tom Bradley with half the police force. They'd been questioning neighbors, checking security footage from the whole street. 3 men, Tom reported. Professionals. Stolen car already found abandoned. No prints, no useful evidence. "Margaret," Jennifer asked. "Still in prison. Hasn't had any visitors, no phone calls except to her lawyer. If she ordered this, she did it through channels we can't trace." They spent the rest of the night at Jake's motel on the edge of town. The kids were in shock, silent and clinging. Everything they owned was gone: photos, clothes, Sophie's soccer trophies, Michael's project car, all of it. "Why?" Sophie asked finally. "He's dead. Why are they still trying to hurt us?" Daniel didn't have a good answer. Revenge, maybe. Or maybe just the Grant family's inability to let any slight go unpunished. The next morning brought worse news. Jennifer's office had been vandalized. Her computers destroyed, client files scattered. The garage had been hit too, every car inside damaged, tools stolen or broken, years of work destroyed in minutes. But the real message came in the mail delivered to Jake's motel. A single photo, Margaret Grant in her prison cell, smiling. On the back, 2 words, "You lose." Daniel crumpled the photo, threw it across the room. After everything, after all they'd survived, to be attacked now when they thought they were safe. "We're leaving," he said. "Tonight. New identities, new state, completely start over." "No," Jennifer said quietly. "Jennifer." "No, Daniel. I'm done running, done hiding, done letting them control our lives. They burned our house. Then we rebuild. They destroyed the businesses. We rebuild those too. We don't run, not anymore. It's not safe. It's never been safe. But you know what? We're still here. Still together. Still a family. And I will not let Margaret Grant or anyone else drive us from our home." Michael stood up. "Mom's right. This is our town, our life. We stay and fight." "Me too," Sophie said, small but fierce. "We're crosses. We don't run." Daniel looked at his family, his brave, stubborn, beautiful family, and felt something shift inside him. They were right. Running meant letting the Grants win, and that was unacceptable. "All right," he said. "We stay, but we do this smart. Jake, can you put us up for a few weeks? As long as you need. Tom, I want protection. Real protection. These weren't local thugs, they were professionals." "Already on it. State police are sending a unit. FBI's getting involved too, given the history." "And we rebuild," Jennifer said. "Everything. Better than before." The next weeks were a blur of insurance claims, police interviews, and construction. The community rallied around them, fundraisers, donated supplies, volunteer labor. The garage was operational. Within a month, the house would take longer, but was progressing. But Daniel knew the attacks wouldn't stop. Margaret had resources, contacts, a network built over decades. Even from prison, she could reach them. Unless they reached her first. The idea came to him late one night while standing watch. Jake insisted on rotating shifts, making sure someone was always awake and armed. What if they didn't wait for the next attack? What if they went on offense? He called Adrian Winters, Jennifer's former business partner, who'd helped before. "I need everything on Margaret Grant," he said. "Every crime, every cover-up, every body she's buried over the years." "That's dangerous territory, Daniel. So is waiting for her to kill us. What are you planning?" "To end this. Permanently. Legally," he added, knowing Adrian would worry. "But permanently." Adrian came through. Within a week, she had files that painted a picture of Margaret Grant as a serial killer who'd used marriage and murder to build an empire. 3 dead husbands, each leaving her wealthier. Business partners who'd died conveniently when they'd become problems. A trail of bodies and buy-offs spanning 40 years. "This is enough to bury her," Adrian said. "But it's also enough to get you killed if she knows you have it. Then we'd better move fast." Daniel took the files to Tom Bradley, who took them to the FBI, who took them to a federal prosecutor hungry for a career-making case. Within days, Margaret Grant was facing new charges, murder, conspiracy, racketeering, under statutes with no limitations. But Margaret had one last card to play. The call came at dawn. Daniel's phone video call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him accept. Margaret's face filled the screen, but she wasn't in her cell. She was in what looked like a warehouse, and she wasn't alone. Behind her, tied to chairs, were 3 people Daniel recognized: Jake's sister and her 2 kids who lived 2 towns over. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," Margaret said pleasantly. "I thought we should talk." "Let them go, they have nothing to do with this." "Neither did you originally, but you inserted yourself into my family's business. Now I'm returning the favor." "What do you want?" "Simple. You're going to recant everything. Say you manufactured the evidence against me that you've been pursuing a vendetta against my family. You'll go to prison for falsifying evidence and I'll go free." "And if I don't?" Margaret pulled out a knife, the same silver blade she'd held to Sophie's throat years ago. She pressed it against the youngest child's cheek, a boy maybe 6 years old. "Then I start cutting. And after I'm done here, I have people standing by at your son's school at Sophie's soccer practice. Oh, I know you have protection, but my people are very good. One will get through." Daniel's mind raced. She'd escaped somehow, or been released, or had inside help. It didn't matter. What mattered was stopping her. "I need time," he said. "To get to the FBI to make it believable, you have 2 hours. Come alone to the address I'm texting you. Try anything clever and these 3 die badly." The screen went dark. Daniel stared at the phone for a moment, then went to wake his family. They needed to know. They deserved to know. "I'm going," he said after explaining. "Like hell you are," Jennifer said. "I don't have a choice." "There's always a choice. We call the FBI the police. And Jake's family dies, you know she'll do it." "So you're just going to walk into a trap?" "No, I'm going to end this." He kissed her, kissed his children, then armed himself. Not obviously Margaret would expect that, but subtly. A ceramic knife in his boot, piano wire in his belt, other tricks learned in places where official weapons weren't allowed. "If I'm not back in 4 hours, call everyone," he told Jennifer. "Daniel, I love you, all of you. Remember that." The warehouse was in an industrial district, abandoned and isolated. Perfect for what Margaret had planned. Daniel parked outside, walked in with his hands visible but not raised. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of surrender. Margaret was waiting, surrounded by 6 men. Jake's sister and her kids were there, terrified but unharmed. So far. "Mr. Cole, so predictable. The hero complex will kill you every time." "Let them go. They're innocents." "There are no innocents. Everyone's leverageable. Everyone's a weakness." She gestured to her men. "Search him." They were thorough but not thorough enough. They found the obvious weapons, missed the subtle ones. "Now," Margaret said, "you're going to call that federal prosecutor. Tell him everything was fabricated." "And you'll let everyone go, Ma?" "Of course not. You're all going to die. But if you cooperate, it will be quick. If not," she gestured to the children. Daniel had known it would come to this. Margaret Grant didn't leave witnesses, didn't show mercy. But she'd made one mistake, she'd brought him close within reach. "All right," he said. "I'll make the call." He pulled out his phone, slowly dialed the prosecutor's number. But instead of speaking when it connected, he threw the phone at the nearest guard's face and moved. The ceramic knife was in his hand before anyone could react, slashing the throat of the man closest to the hostages. Daniel rolled, came up behind another piano wire around his neck. 2 down in 3 seconds. Gunfire erupted, but Daniel was already moving, using the fallen men as shields. He'd mapped the warehouse the moment he'd entered, noted every exit, every piece of cover. 3 men left, plus Margaret. They were shooting wildly, trying to track him in the dim light. Daniel circled, struck from unexpected angles. Another down, then another. The last man grabbed the little boy, used him as a shield. "Stop or I kill the kid." Daniel stopped, hands visible. The man relaxed slightly, thinking he'd won. That's when Daniel threw the knife, a perfect strike to the eye. The man dropped without a sound. Margaret stood alone now, her perfect composure finally cracked. She pulled out a gun, pointed it at Daniel. "You think you've won?" she snarled. "You've destroyed everything, my family, our legacy, centuries of work. Your family was built on blood. It deserves to die. And you, what are you built on? Violence, death, the same as us?" "No, I'm built on love, on protection, on sacrifice." Pretty words from a killer. I've killed, but only to protect. You kill for power, for money, for pride. That's the difference. She pulled the trigger. Daniel was already moving, but not fast enough. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Another shot, this one in the ribs. He went down hard. Margaret stood over him, gun pointed at his head. "Any last words?" "Yeah." Daniel gasped, his hand finding something in his pocket. "You missed." He held up a small device, a GPS tracker activated the moment he'd entered the warehouse. Margaret's eyes widened as she heard the sirens already close and getting closer. "You called them before you came," she said. "Insurance policy. Jake's idea. You'll still die. Maybe. But you'll go to prison. Forever this time." "I think not." She turned the gun toward Jake's sister and her kids. Daniel didn't think, just acted. Despite his wounds, he lunged upward, caught Margaret around the waist. They went down together, wrestling for the gun. She was stronger than she looked, desperate and vicious. But Daniel had trained for this, lived this. He got control of the weapon, turned it toward her. "Do it," she hissed. "Kill me. Prove you're just like us." "I'm nothing like you." He threw the gun away, pinned her until the police burst in, weapons drawn. Tom Bradley was first through the door, taking in the scene, bodies on the floor, Daniel bleeding, Margaret Grant captured. "We need medics," Tom shouted. As EMTs worked on him, Daniel watched them arrest Margaret, this time for good. She'd been caught in the act, attempted murder with witnesses. No lawyer could save her now. Jake's sister and her kids were safe, traumatized, but unharmed. They'd testify, ensuring Margaret would never see freedom again. Daniel faded in and out as they loaded him into the ambulance. The last thing he saw was Jennifer's face, tears streaming as she climbed in beside him. "Don't you dare die on me," she said fiercely. "Wouldn't dream of it," he managed. "You promised we'd face everything together." Still planning to. The surgery took 6 hours. The bullets had done damage, but nothing irreparable. Daniel woke to find his family around him, Jennifer holding his hand, Michael and Sophie curled up in chairs they'd pulled close to the bed. "Hey," he whispered. "Hey yourself," Jennifer said, crying and smiling at once. "You scared us." "Sorry. Had to end it." "Did you?" "Yeah, it's over. Really over this time." Margaret Grant was charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and thanks to the evidence, Adrian had uncovered 3 counts of first-degree murder for her dead husbands. She would die in prison, alone and forgotten. The Grant empire collapsed completely. Assets were seized, connections severed, the name itself becoming toxic. Within a year, it was as if they'd never existed. Daniel recovered slowly but fully. The shoulder would always ache when it rained, and he had new scars to add to his collection. But he was alive. They all were. They rebuilt the house better than before. The garage thrived, with Michael officially becoming a partner when he turned 18. Jennifer's business grew into one of the most successful consulting firms in the Pacific Northwest. Sophie grew into a remarkable young woman, kind, fierce, protective of others. She became a lawyer specializing in helping abuse victims escape their situations. She never forgot where she came from, what they'd survived. Michael followed his father's footsteps, in some ways joining the military after college. But he came home whole, became a teacher like his mother Sarah had been. He married a doctor, had 3 kids who called Daniel Grandpa, and meant it. Years later, when the story had become family legend, Sophie asked Daniel if he regretted any of it. They were sitting on the porch of the rebuilt house watching her own children play in the yard. Jennifer was in the kitchen with Michael's family, the sound of laughter drifting through the windows. "Regret saving you and your mother, never," Daniel said. "But the violence, the killing, I regret that it was necessary, but not that I did it. Sometimes, Sophie, the only way to stop evil is to stand against it, to be the wall between the darkness and the innocent. Is that what you were, our wall? I tried to be. You were more than that, Dad. You were our salvation." Daniel pulled her close, this girl who'd become his daughter, not by blood, but by choice, by love, by shared survival. "You saved me too," he said. "You all did. You gave me something worth fighting for. And now we have peace. Hard-won, blood-bought but real. Do you miss it, the fighting? No, I was a warrior because I had to be. But this," he gestured to the house, the family, the life they'd built, "this is what I was fighting for. This is the victory." That night, as the family gathered for dinner, Daniel looked around the table. Jennifer, still beautiful, still fierce, the love of his second chance at life. Michael, grown into a good man, a protector in his own way. Sophie, who'd overcome so much to become someone who helped others overcome. Grandchildren who would never know his fear their parents had lived through. "What are you thinking?" Jennifer asked, catching his contemplative mood. "Just that Sarah was right," Daniel said. "Happiness isn't about what you have. It's about who you have. And what you're willing to do to protect them," Jennifer added. "That too." They'd lost everything once, names, homes, the illusion of safety. But they'd gained something more valuable, a family forged in fire, tested by violence, and proven unbreakable. The Grants were gone, their evil ended. But the crosses remained stronger for what they'd survived. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. The rest of their lives stretched before them, ordinary, peaceful, beautifully normal. Daniel had been a soldier, a protector, a warrior when necessary. But now finally he was just a man who'd kept his promises to Sarah, to Jennifer, to the children who called him Dad. The war was over. They'd won. And the peace that followed was worth every scar, every sacrifice, every moment of terror they'd endured. Because on the other side of darkness, they'd found light. On the other side of fear, they'd found love. And on the other side of survival, they'd found something even better, a life worth living. Together. Always together. 20 years had passed since that night in the warehouse, 20 years of the peace Daniel had fought so hard to win. Sophie was 30 now, a successful attorney with her own practice, specializing in domestic violence cases. Michael, at 35, had just been promoted to principal at the high school where he taught. The grandchildren were growing fast. Michael's 3 kids and Sophie's twin boys filled the Cross family home with laughter every Sunday dinner. Daniel was 58, his hair more silver than brown, now the old wounds aching more with each passing winter. But he still worked at the garage 3 days a week, teaching young mechanics the trade, passing on what he knew. Jennifer ran her consulting firm from home these days, preferring to be close to family as they entered what she called their golden years. It should have been perfect. It was perfect except for the envelope that arrived on a Tuesday morning with no return address. Daniel found it tucked under the windshield wiper of his truck at the garage. His name was written on the front in careful cursive, not printed, not typed, but handwritten in a way that made his blood run cold. He knew that handwriting. Inside was a single photograph and a note. The photograph showed him at Sophie's wedding 5 years earlier dancing with his daughter, both of them laughing. But it was taken from an angle that suggested the photographer had been inside the venue close unnoticed. The note was brief: "The sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the children, even unto the third and fourth generation. DG. DG Dominic Grant." But Dominic was dead. Daniel had seen the autopsy report, had even attended the burial to make sure. The man was cremated, his ashes scattered. There was no way his phone rang. "Jennifer. Daniel, you need to come home. Now." The drive home was the longest 10 minutes of his life. Jennifer met him at the door, her face pale, but composed, the same expression she'd worn all those years ago when they'd first run from Dominic. "What is it?" he asked. She handed him a tablet, a video queued up. "This was emailed to me 5 minutes ago. Sophie and Michael got the same one." Daniel pressed play. The video was grainy, clearly old, but the man in it was unmistakably Dominic Grant. He was sitting in what looked like a prison cell, but not his official one. This was somewhere else, somewhere private. "Hello, Isabella." Dominic's recorded voice said, that same cultured tone that had once terrorized them. "If you're watching this, then 20 years have passed since my supposed death. Yes, supposed. You see, Mother always had contingency plans, and faking my death was surprisingly simple. A body double, a few bribes, a cremation to destroy any evidence." Daniel's hands tightened on the tablet. Jennifer sat beside him, her hand finding his. Dominic continued. "I could have come for you immediately, of course. But Mother convinced me that the best revenge is served not just cold, but aged to perfection. 20 years, she said. Let them build their lives, have their happiness grow comfortable and safe. Let the children grow up, have children of their own. Let them have everything to lose." "My God," Jennifer whispered. "By now, Mother is dead. She would never have survived 20 years in prison. But her plan lives on. I've spent 2 decades preparing, building a new identity, new resources, new allies. I'm not the man you knew, Isabella. I'm something more focused, more patient, more dangerous." The video shifted, showing surveillance footage, recent footage. Sophie at her law office last week. Michael at school yesterday. The grandchildren at the park over the weekend. "I know everything about your lives," Dominic said. "Every detail, every routine, every vulnerability. Your protector is older now, slower. Your children have children of their own to worry about. You've grown soft in your peace." The video returned to Dominic's face, older now, but with the same cold eyes. "I'm coming for what's mine. Not just Sophie, she's made her choice and she's dead to me. But the grandchildren, they carry Grant blood. They belong with their real family, raised properly, away from the weakness you've infected them with." "Over my dead body," Daniel growled. As if Dominic had heard him, the video continued. "I imagine Mr. Cole is making threats right now, swearing to protect you all. Let him. I want him to try. I want him to fail. I want him to watch as everything he fought for is taken away, piece by piece." The video ended with coordinates and a time: tomorrow, midnight. Come alone, Isabella or I. Start with the youngest grandchild. Daniel was already moving, pulling out phones, calling Jake, Tom, Bradley, everyone from their old network who was still alive and able. But Jake was 73 now, living in assisted care with early-stage dementia. Tom had retired to Florida 5 years ago. Martinez had died of a heart attack the previous winter. Their old army was gone, scattered by time and age. "We call the FBI," Jennifer said. "With what, a video that could be fake, a dead man making threats, they'll think we're crazy." "Then what do we do?" Before Daniel could answer, his phone rang. "Sophie." "Dad? Someone tried to take Emma from school." Emma was Sophie's 6-year-old daughter, the youngest of all the grandchildren. Daniel's blood turned to ice. What happened? A man showed up claiming to be from my office, said there was an emergency. The school called to verify, thank God. He ran when they started asking questions. Dad, the school security footage the man looked like. Dominic, I know. He's alive, Sophie. Silence on the other end, then. That's impossible. Get Emma and James go to the safe house, the one we set up but never used. Michael's already on his way with his family. Dad. Now Sophie. Please. The safe house was a cabin deep in the Cascades purchased under a shell company years ago, a paranoid preparation they'd hoped would never be necessary. It was stocked secure and, most importantly, unknown to anyone outside the immediate family. As the families converged on the cabin, Daniel and Jennifer stayed at the house waiting. If Dominic was watching, and he certainly was someone needed to be visible to keep his attention focused. We can't do this alone, Jennifer said. Not this time. I know. He's had 20 years to plan, Daniel. 20 years to prepare for exactly this moment. I know that too. So what do we do? Daniel was quiet for a long moment, his mind working through possibilities, strategies, the brutal mathematics of survival. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call he'd never thought he'd make. Adrienne, it's Daniel. I need you to do something for me. Something that might be illegal, definitely dangerous, and probably impossible. I'm listening, Adrienne said without hesitation. I need you to resurrect Ethan Cole. 3 hours later, Adrienne called back. It's done. Ethan Cole officially died in Alaska 20 years ago, but the body was never positively identified. I've created a paper trail suggesting he survived, went underground, became something else. What are you planning, Daniel? Dominic expects to face Daniel Cross, the aging mechanic. He doesn't expect Ethan Cole, the soldier. You're still the same person. No, Daniel said quietly. I'm not. Daniel Cross has too much to lose. Ethan Cole already lost everything once. He knows how to survive it. That night, Daniel transformed himself. He shaved his gray beard, revealing the scarred face beneath. He pulled out gear he'd hidden even from Jennifer, tactical equipment, weapons, things from his military days he'd kept just in case. When he emerged from the garage's hidden room, Jennifer gasped. You look like I did 20 years ago. Like the man who stood between you and Dominic the first time. You're not that man anymore. You're older. I'm smarter, more experienced, and I have something now I didn't have then. What? Nothing left to prove. I'm not trying to be a hero, Jennifer. I'm just trying to keep our family alive. The coordinates Dominic had sent led to an abandoned lumber mill 40 miles from Millbrook. Daniel arrived at 11:30, 30 minutes before the deadline. He parked, openly walked in without trying to hide. Let Dominic think he was confident, unafraid. The mill was massive, all shadows and rusted machinery. Perfect for an ambush, terrible for a rescue. But Daniel had fought in worse places, Afghan valleys where every rock could hide a sniper, urban ruins where every doorway meant death. Mr. Cole, Dominic's voice echoed through the space. Or should I call you Mr. Cross? Such confusion with all these false identities. Daniel turned slowly. Dominic stood on a catwalk above, and Daniel's first thought was that the man had aged well. Prison, or wherever he'd really been, had hardened him, stripped away the soft edges of wealth and privilege. He looked dangerous now, in a way he never had before. Dominic, Daniel said simply, you look good for a dead man. Death was liberating. It freed me from the obligations of my old life, the weaknesses. I've had 20 years to become what I should have been all along. A monster. A survivor. Like you, Mr. Cole. We're not so different. We're nothing alike. Aren't we? We both killed for our families. Both lied, both ran, both did whatever was necessary. The only difference is that you won. This time. Movement in the shadows, Daniel counted at least 8 men, probably more. Professional placement overlapping fields of fire. Dominic had learned from his previous mistakes. "Where's Isabella?" Dominic asked. "Safe, along with everyone else you threatened." "No one's safe. Not from me. Not anymore." Dominic descended the stairs, confident, controlled. "Do you know what I did for 20 years, Mr. Cole? I studied you. Every mission report from Afghanistan, every medal citation, every after-action review. You were quite the soldier. Helmand Province, 2007. You held a position against 40 Taliban fighters with just 3 men. Impressive. That was a long time ago. Skills like that don't fade. They just sleep until they're needed again." Dominic pulled out a gun, not pointing it at Daniel, but holding it casually. "I know you're armed. I know you've probably already identified 3 ways to kill me. But here's what you don't know." And a screen lit up on the wall showing security footage from the safe house. Daniel's family, all of them unaware they were being watched. "I found it, of course," Dominic said. "Your little hidey hole. My men are already in position. 1 word from me and they breach. How many do you think you'll lose in the first 30 seconds? The children, certainly. Maybe Sophie, she was always fragile." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Dominic pulled out a phone, hit a button. On the screen, red laser dots appeared on the cabin's windows, sniper sights, at least 4 of them. Daniel's mind raced. He'd been outmaneuvered completely. Dominic had used the meeting as a distraction, drawn him away from his family. "Here's my offer," Dominic said. "You die here tonight, and I let them live. Isabella and the children can go free. I'll take the grandchildren, they're Grants after all, but painlessly. No trauma. They'll simply disappear one day and grow up knowing their real heritage. Never. Then they all die, starting with the youngest." He raised the phone to his ear. "Team 1, prepare to..." The shot came from nowhere, taking Dominic's phone and part of his hand with it. He screamed, dropping to his knees, and Daniel moved. But he wasn't alone. From the shadows came figures he recognized, not his old team, but their children. Martinez's son, a Marine sniper like his father. Johnson's daughter, Army Rangers. Thompson's twins, both Special Forces. They'd answered Adrienne's call, the next generation coming to repay old debts. The mill erupted in controlled violence. Dominic's men were good, but they were mercenaries facing warriors with a cause. Daniel reached Dominic in seconds, kicked his gun away, pressed him to the ground. "Your snipers are dead," he said quietly. "Martinez's boy took them out 10 minutes ago. Your assault team at the cabin walked into an ambush. Turns out Michael learned more from me than just fixing cars. And your escape route is cut off. It's over, Dominic. Really over this time." "You think you've won?" Dominic laughed, blood running from his destroyed hand. "I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers' connections. All under your false identity, which Adrienne just exposed to the FBI. They're freezing your accounts as we speak. And this time there's no Margaret to save you. No empire to fall back on. You're just a fugitive who faked his death, threatened children, and got caught." Sirens in the distance getting closer. The new generation had been as smart as their parents. They'd called for backup before the assault. "Kill me," Dominic gasped. "You want to, I can see it." Daniel looked down at him, this man who'd caused so much pain, so much fear. It would be easy, justified even. One squeeze of the trigger and the threat would be gone forever. But then he thought of Sophie, who'd become a protector of the innocent, of Michael, who taught children to be better than their circumstances, of the grandchildren, who would grow up in a world where justice mattered more than revenge. "No," Daniel said, stepping back. "You're going to prison. For real this time. And you're going to live with the knowledge that you lost. Not to violence, but to love. Not to fear, but to family." The police arrived, FBI close behind. Dominic was arrested, his men captured or killed. The false identity he'd built crumbled within hours, 20 years of planning, destroyed in minutes. At the safe house, the families reunited. Sophie threw herself into Daniel's arms, crying. Michael stood solid and proud. He'd coordinated the defense, had protected everyone when Daniel couldn't be there. "Is it over?" Jennifer asked. "Really over?" "Yes," Daniel said, and this time he meant it. Dominic will be charged with faking his death, conspiracy, attempted kidnapping. He'll never see freedom again. And us, we go home, we live our lives, we stop looking over our shoulders. The trial was swift. Dominic, faced with overwhelming evidence and no allies left to help him, pled guilty to avoid the death penalty. Life without parole in maximum security, with no possibility of faking his death again. Margaret died in prison 2 months later, taking her secrets and her hatred to the grave. The Grant name died with them, and their empire long since dissolved, their legacy one of violence and failure. But the Cross family thrived. Sophie expanded her practice, helping more victims escape their abusers. She saw her father in every client she saved, someone willing to stand between the darkness and the innocent. Michael started a program at his school for at-risk youth, teaching them that strength wasn't about violence, but about protecting others. His father's lessons passed on to a new generation. The grandchildren grew up free, unburdened by the shadow of the Grants. They knew the story. Of course, it was family history, family legend. But it was the past, not their future. Daniel returned to being Daniel Cross, full-time, leaving Ethan Cole buried again, hopefully forever. He worked at the garage, teaching young mechanics not just about engines, but about life, about standing up for what's right, even when it costs everything. Jennifer's business became a model for ethical consulting, turning down clients who reminded her too much of the Grants, choosing integrity over profit every time. 5 years after Dominic's final capture, they held a family reunion at the rebuilt house. 4 generations gathered: Daniel and Jennifer, their children, grandchildren, and Sophie's newest baby, a daughter named Sarah, after the grandmother she'd never meet, but whose spirit lived on in the family's courage. "Tell us the story, Grandpa," one of the grandchildren asked. "The real story." Daniel looked at Jennifer, who nodded. They'd decided the children were old enough to know, to understand where they came from and what had been sacrificed for their freedom. So Daniel told them. Not the sanitized version, but the truth. About a storm that brought strangers together. About evil that wore expensive suits and smiled while it destroyed. About ordinary people who chose to be extraordinary when faced with the impossible. About love that was stronger than fear, family that was chosen rather than born, and the price of freedom that was always worth paying. "Were you scared?" Emma asked, curled on his lap. "Every day," Daniel admitted. "But being scared doesn't mean you don't act. It means you act despite the fear." "Would you do it again?" Michael's oldest asked, knowing everything that would happen. Daniel looked at his family, this beautiful, impossible family, built from fragments of broken lives. Jennifer still the strongest person he knew. Michael and Sophie, who'd grown into remarkable adults despite or because of what they'd survived. The grandchildren who would never know the terror their parents had lived through. Every time, he said, without hesitation. Every single time. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Daniel stood on the porch where he'd once watched for threats. Now he just watched the stars, feeling the weight of years and scars and victories hard won. Jennifer joined him, as she always did. "Any regrets?" she asked their old question. "None," he answered their old answer. "We did it, didn't we? We won. We survived. We protected them. We built something from nothing." "Sarah would be proud," Jennifer said. It was the first time she'd ever mentioned his first wife voluntarily. "She would," Daniel agreed. "She'd say we kept our promise. We stood between the darkness and the innocent. And now we get to be the boring grandparents who spoil the kids and tell stories about the old days." Jennifer laughed. "Boring us. We don't know how to be boring. We could learn. We could try." They stood together in comfortable silence, two warriors finally at peace. Somewhere in Montana, Jake's children were carrying on their father's legacy of loyalty. Somewhere in prison, Dominic Grant was facing his first night of truly understanding he'd never be free again. Somewhere in the beyond, perhaps Sarah and Margaret's victims were finally at rest. But here now, in this moment, there was only peace. Hard-won, blood-bought, but real and lasting. The war was over, the Cross family had won, and the future stretched before them bright with possibility, free from fear, full of love. Daniel thought about the mechanic he'd been that night 20 years ago, working late in his garage, lost in grief, and going through the motions of living. He thought about the stranger who'd burst through his door, soaking wet, and terrified, changing his life forever. He thought about all the moments that had brought them here, the violence, the running, the hiding, the fighting. Every scar had been worth it. Every sacrifice had led to this. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Jennifer asked. "For crashing into my life. For giving me something to fight for. For making me remember how to live. Thank you for saving us. We saved each other." "Yeah," she agreed. "We did." As they went inside, Daniel took one last look at the night sky. Somewhere out there, other families were facing their own storms, their own monsters, their own impossible odds. He hoped they'd find their own protectors, their own warriors willing to stand between them, and the darkness. But that was their story to write. His was ending here with family safe, enemies defeated, and love triumphant. It was, he thought, a good ending. The best ending. The only ending that mattered. In the morning there would be breakfast to make grandchildren, to spoil cars, to fix lives to live. Ordinary things, precious things, things worth every battle they'd fought to have them. But tonight there was just peace. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything.